Commissioner Ward, yep. Okay, great. And Commissioner Ward is here. So we've got a full commission of our 16 members, so thank you very much for that. And as you know, we are a commission that votes with consensus approval, so it's very important we're all here, especially for the final report. So thank you all for being here on time. We will now move to agenda item number 2, which is review and approval of the meeting notes from the last meeting. Do I hear any changes or a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Great.
I'll second that.
Great. So all those in favor, thumbs up. And is there anybody that has any concerns or changes you wish to make to these meeting notes? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 3. And I just realized I could not see the chat. So let me pull that up and make sure I'm looking at the chat in case any of you need to speak. Okay. So agenda item number 3, this is the public comment review for items not on the agenda. CalRecycle, do we have any public comments?
Yes, we have one public comment from Tim Shestak with the American Chemistry Council. It says, in case you may have missed this recent announcement by the U.S. Department of Energy regarding an investment of up to $14.5 million for research and development to cut waste and reduce the energy used to recycle single-use plastics like plastic bags, wraps, and films. More information can be found at a link that he then provides. Thank you. And that's been published.
Thank you very much. I did see that. I don't know if any of the rest of you have. So there's no other public comments on anything that's not on the agenda, so we'll go ahead and move on then to agenda item 4, which is our discussion and feedback with Director Maki Wagner. So hopefully Director Wagner, is she available at this time, or do we need to proceed and come back when she's available?
I will check with her. I think she was planning on signing on at the time on the agenda, but I'll reach out to her right now.
Yeah, that would be good if we could move it up. I didn't know we'd go this fast, obviously. So if she can, that's great. If not, we'll go ahead and go back to agenda item number 4. So with that, I think we should start the commission report, agenda item number 5, since we don't have any time to waste today. And we can start by pulling up the actual report. Commissioner Ward, if you might go ahead and do that. And then we can talk through where we are with the report. And we'll go back to agenda item number 4 whenever Commissioner Wagner joins us. And there was a lot of work done on this by many of you, the introductions to the different committee sections, and then also by Commissioner Ward and myself, based on, trying to reformat, trying to tell the story, put things in a logical order. So this is a big day for us to making sure you're okay with how this is being framed and ordered. If we need to make any changes, today is the day, because we'll need to obviously hear it again one more time on the 16th. So Commissioner Ward, do you want to start with the changes that you just, I think you just a few changes.
Yeah, I'm scrolling and you can see that the additions are in green underline.
Yeah, why don't you stop at the first ones and we'll just go through the changes and then talk through, because everything in black is what we've already adopted.
Exactly.
So we'll just stop at every one of the track changes and read them and make sure everybody's okay. And if anybody has a different comment or a bigger question, I do see Commissioner Donlevy's hand is up, so I'll ask that he. Do you have something to say on this item, Commissioner Donlevy?
Yeah, I was going to ask if we can move this to after the policy discussion, just for the sake of time, because it always seems like we're cut short at the end of the meeting.
This is our last chance to get the report done, so I would not recommend that, but I'm open to thoughts by other commissioners. I don't see any, so my preference would be that we just proceed and get through this as quickly as we can.
I will move quickly. Any comments on this, since it's been in front of people?
This is additionally, the public needs to be able to trust their government when they are told that after a deposit is collected, they will get it back. They should be able to count on that promise being kept. We need to make recycling truthful and easy. People, especially after the pandemic, are very stressed, and recycling should not be stressful. We're just basically trying to make the comment here that recycling has unfortunately become a stressor for people, and it shouldn't be hard. It should be very clear and easy, and we were just trying to make that point. So unless there's any other comments on that.
So everything's in black that it was in the previous report, so that's already been approved,
Mhm.
and we've kept it forward.
We're changing dates though. Every time it's green, if you could stop so everybody can just see what we changed. Right above, I think it was the date. Yeah. So the tumultuous events of this year and last.
Mr. Kashner resigned. We added that.
Mm-hmm.
There,
So we-
the good news, tumultuous events 2021.
Mm-hmm.
This highlight indicates that we want to have a link to the guiding principles, which were adopted early. That sort of stuff is going to be in the back in appendices because, otherwise it's distracting from reading. This was underlined previously. That was a little clunky. I made it bold.
Mm-hmm. Commissioner Sky, I'm sorry, I missed you there.
That's okay. I just want to make sure that we're double checking some of the links. The version that I downloaded, it didn't seem to work.
The links are dead. You're absolutely correct. And I was going to do that afterwards. Right now I'm working on the language. So I appreciate that comment. It's absolutely correct.
And is there someone that can proof the report once it's completed just to find any typos or grammatical issues?
Can I accept that as a volunteer?
I'm happy to do that if no one else is available.
Yeah, I think obviously we will go through everything and double check links, and we have to reorder some of the policies and some other stuff. So that's something that Commissioner Ward and I will work very hard on to make sure this is literally the final before you for the next commission meeting for sure. So we added here that we had our first meeting in June, and then we have had 24 full commission meetings and over 50 committee meetings, and yes, we did count them. We estimate now that we're well over 2,500 hours of volunteer time. If you have a better back of the envelope number, please let us know, but we were actually counting the number of hours of the meetings, et cetera, and that's just the in-meeting time.
I think that date should have been 2020, by the way.
Oh, you're absolutely correct. Thank you.
And this is why we do this.
I think it was correct. You need to go back.
Our first meeting of our first year was 2020.
After our final meeting of our first year.
You're right. Thank you.
Thanks. I read that too quickly.
Okay, and this is why I want to slow down and actually read these, and then actually, Commissioner Ward, if we could just approve these changes as we go, they're just going to be done.
Oh, I see. Right.
We're just going to
Fair
accept
enough.
them, and they're done.
Make them black. And no underline.
Or just hit accept if they allow you to do that.
No, wait, that's not how we've done it.
I gotcha. Okay. Okay, great. So, and we'll accept the other ones later. Okay, so
Yes,
let's go
right.
down. The Organics Committee.
Indicating that Chair Kalpakoff began his term in May 2021, and Kashner had served up until his resignation.
Make those.
Let me do that later.
Yeah. We'll do that later. As long as everybody's agreeing, we're going to go back and these will be accepted unless somebody says something. Okay.
Appreciation to Commissioner Sky for contributing to the language describing these two-person committees.
Yes. So this is the C&D committee by myself and Commissioner Toyota, reviewing the C&D materials and developing policies for market development to consider. We developed 3 policies regarding roads, drywall, and shingles. Drywall.
I think also the mix C&D should be included in there.
Develop policies for committee, let's see, 3 policies, roads, drywall. You're right, mixed C&D. And mixed C&D is in the report, whereas drywall and the road base are discussed.
And
in the
roofing
report.
shingles, not.
No, road base is, but drywall and roofing shingles are not.
Commissioner Ward and I went back and looked, and I talked to Commissioner Toyota. We actually decided to put it in the report as we're not doing it because we were asked to go back and check with Caltrans, and she and I decided that it's not the highest priority. They're already doing it. They're saying there's financial reasons to do it. If there's a reason that we think it needs to have a policy and be that elevated to that level of importance, we can do that at a later time. But at this point, that does not seem like the low-hanging fruit.
Okay.
Us.
Well, so it's semantic, whether you develop policies, but only one is in the report, or
Right.
just reference the one.
So we can say we developed 4 policies actually, but then only the one for C and D,
that?
mixed C and D are actually in the report. Correct, Sarah? Commissioner Toyota?
How's that?
Yeah. And she and I can go over this, but basically, yeah. So drywall recycling is not proposed in this report. Well, actually, we say drywall and the road base policies are not proposed in this report. And then you can just make a note that we'll address this language. Again, we've all been running out of time. Everything's coming off the floor Friday and.
Yeah. Okay, let's keep moving.
Yep. So let's just make a note that this will be.
Yeah.
If I make it yellow, then we'll
Yep.
fix it later.
That's
Right.
perfect. Yep.
Good. All right, moving.
Carpet and flooring, David Sanborn, this was subcommittee, reviewed the carpet stewardship program and make recommendations, which resulted in the carpet policy. And that's the same policy that we had from the first report. So there's nothing new there. The renewable technologies, Guy and Osagura. I think there's an extra space after technologies. This commissioner working group of the organics committee focused on developing a policy recommendation for the whole system approach for organics discard diversion based on new waste management hierarchy paradigm and the specific needs in the organics source reduction, collection and processing infrastructure, and distribution of beneficial products. So should we say which policy number or we just leave it? I think that's fine. to just-
That's coming later. Right now, we're introducing each of the groups.
Yep. Okay, so then we have food waste prevention and rescue, exports and precautionary principle by Sky and Lapis. This commissioner working group, the organics committee focused on policy recommendations to support development of food rescue systems and protect public health and the environment from toxins and products that could contaminate our composting systems, food, and the environment. Well, I think that was well written. Then the organics infrastructure, Potasher and Osagura. I'm not going to read this. I would get rid of the extra spaces, and if anybody has any thoughts, especially the commissioners we're referring to, please let us know if you want to change any of this wording.
And this last paragraph is a parenthetical I needed to add somewhere, and that the policy numbering, it's really so important to be able to make sure that we're all referring to the same policies, so we keep a coherent numbering system. The first policies were numbered sequentially in the first report, and since that time, all the ones are starting with 2021 to indicate the year that they were adopted. So it's just indicating how we're doing that. In future, what I think makes sense is actually assigning the number at the point that each policy is.
Yep, and we'll do that. And I just see that Director Wagner has joined us, so we'll leave it here and we'll pick up on page 10, priorities of this commission. And we want to welcome Director Wagner to the meeting. And thank you so much for jumping on early. We had zipped right through the first few items, and we're very glad you could make it. And we really just wanted to have the opportunity to give you the floor, give us an update, how are things going, and then tell you where we are with the report and ask any questions from the commissioners to you and just have a little dialogue. And we have a hard stop at 30 minutes because we have so much to do today. But welcome so much to the meeting, Director Wagner.
Well, thank you, and thank you so much for having me, and I'm glad you're building in efficiencies. I would expect no less from you. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you to all of you and the incredible work you've done over the last year. The report that you are getting ready to vote on or voted on, and recommendations that you're sending to the legislature are really an incredible product that you have put out after, I venture to say, thousands of volunteer hours between the bunch of you and your 75 meetings. And it is so appreciated. I know you're all volunteers and you do this because you care about the work that we do and about making California a better place, about fighting climate change and reduction of trash and really truly getting to a zero waste economy. So first and foremost, just wanted to say thank you for this incredible work that you've done. It is really noticed and appreciated and really seen in the report that you are preparing to send to the legislature. So thank you so much for that. I think you will see that in the governor's May revised budget, it was very exciting. I was so incredibly excited. As you can see, Governor Newsom thinks that our mission is very important and has really deemed building the circular economy here in the state of California a priority, as you can see, as it is outlined in his May revise as well as his Jan 10 budget, but then really backed up with some really important investments in making the circular economy. And we are very excited about the infusion of dollars to some of our existing programs and a couple of new programs that would be created. And as you can see, those investments all build at different points of the circular economy to truly make investments to make a truly circular system. And so everything from food recovery to community composting, and then our new programs that we're so excited about, the creation of what we're calling the Office of Innovation. It's the Office of Innovation in Remanufacturing and Recycling, but what we're calling the Office of Innovation to truly focus the work that we do at CalRecycle around working with business developers and entrepreneurs about building companies that are truly part of the circular economy and attracting those companies that we would like to see here in the state of California as part of the circular economy. So we are going to build this office that will really have a focus on doing that and then really work with our partners in the public and private sector on bringing those companies that are going to do the best work for California to the regions that we would really like to see them in. Two new programs that we're very excited about are one, a partnership with GoBiz. We've long partnered with GoBiz on business development, but this new program is really delving into utilizing the best and the brightest from both CalRecycle and GoBiz to provide loans to, again, those companies that we want to attract here to the state of California, and a $50 million infusion of general fund into that program is really meant to say, this is important to the state of California. And we think this is so incredibly important. The provisions that are provided within the Climate Catalyst Fund are so incredibly important because they show those private companies that California values the work that they do. By providing a program that is specifically targeted at those upfront loans through iBank, much like RMDZ, but even before you've figured out how to cite, that we want to attract you here to the state of California and we want to help you be here in the state of California. We think this is so incredibly important. The second program that really gets to that same goal of attracting innovative companies is this new, very exciting little program that we built out with GoBiz as well, but will be housed at CalRecycle, is aimed at helping with business development. So as many of you know, or all of you probably know, when you are a small business that is innovating and trying to do something new, figuring out whether or not it makes sense to do your business in the state of California in one region or another, how to make that business make sense and profitable, that business development, that first $300,000 to $500,000 to develop a business plan is often a hurdle to doing that. So we have now, in the governor's may revise a new program at CalRecycle that would allow us to provide grants for business development. And again, we think that this is an incredibly important investment that shows that we are interested in building the circular economy here in California, and we are going to invest in the companies who are thinking of those bright new ideas on how best to do it, and we want them to do it here. So with that, I think maybe I will just turn it back over to you, Heidi, on whether you guys want to talk about your recommendations or may revise or where you'd like to go from here.
Great, thank you so much. And I'm really glad you brought up the may revise. I know I'll just speak for myself and our organization individually, but we sent in some support for that language and feel very strongly about it and are very excited. The governor's this excited to help invest in our circular economy. Also, some of those recommendations kind of came out of, I think, what this commission did in market development. We had policies 8 and 9, the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, GOBEZ enhanced role, and then CalRecycle market development focus. I think clearly both those things have been addressed in that budget revise. So thank you again, and thanks to Commissioner Davis for all his hard work on those two policies. And I also did want to say that we put in our letter of support that we would love to see, again, I'm not speaking for the commission, just myself, but some grants to reuse businesses. If we really prioritize reuse and repair, those small businesses are really, really hard up right now, obviously after COVID, and we feel like that could really spark some and expand existing businesses that are already doing that good work. So that was a suggestion that we had.
Heidi, thank you. So I just wanted to say on that particular point, I really appreciated that comment in the letter. And we had a conversation with legislative staff and the LAO on Friday. And we raised that with them, that we think that's a really excellent amendment to what the administration is proposing. And we saw a lot of support for that as well. So thank you so much for that input. Again, that was incredibly, it just shows how this partnership between the administration and the legislature and the commission and all of you in your independent capacities, it really is going to make the world of difference for building what we're trying to build here in the state.
Thank you, and that's great news. So I think we have a couple of comments and questions from commissioners. I think first Commissioner Lapis and then Commissioner Sky.
Hey, Rachel, thank you so much for joining us. So a couple of quick questions. First of all, on the Catalyst Fund, how do you see that interplaying with the two existing revolving loan programs, the RMDZ program and the GGRF revolving loan program?
That is such a good question, Nick, and it is something that we've been talking a lot about. And so that particular program was built specifically to fill the gaps of places where we don't have existing loan programs. So when we were talking to GOBEZ about where are their gaps, RMDZ is fantastic when you know exactly where you're going to site or where you're expanding and know exactly what those impacts are, and when you're trying to hit a specific mark in terms of how much money you need to expand your business or build in a specific place. Cal Competes is fantastic if you are saying we're going to site somewhere in the United States, but California, show us that you're the best place. There is this gap in between what GOBEZ currently has and what CalRecycle currently has through both the RMDZ and the GGRF loan program, where you have to kind of really know exactly what you're doing. There's this gap in between where it's like, we know we want to locate here in California. This makes imminent sense. I think a great example is a paper pulping business. We know it makes sense to be somewhere in this region. We don't know exactly where we want to site, but we know we want to be in the state because that makes good business sense to not be taking our feedstock clear across the country or, worse yet, over an ocean. But we don't know where, and we're not really sure how to make this make sense in the state of California, given the cost of doing business in California, energy resources or water resources, or just the cost of real estate. so this is really meant to get at that gap, to have a loan program that gets specifically at that gap.
That's really helpful. I mean, as I think you know, there's been some trepidation among some folks in the legislature about the climate catalyst. And I'm wondering, you know, if it doesn't end up getting funded, and I think the vision you had, is there an opportunity to incorporate some of that into the RMDZ program and maybe look at transforming the RMDZ program into a tool that could be used in that capacity?
I think there are other options, and this was actually part of our conversation with the legislature. We are aware of their skepticism around climate catalyst. I think, just not to put too fine a point on this, but I think that partnership between GoBiz and CalRecycle is a really excellent sweet spot. iBank is up and running and already able to help get to identify those companies that make the right, make sense for the state to take that risk on, that are going to have the social benefit that we're prepared to do the risk, but also know how to do the financial evaluation of those companies. They are definitely, I think, more equipped to do that faster. And, you know, obviously CalRecycle knows exactly what kind of companies we want to attract, where they should be, what kind of companies are really going to build out the circular economy, and how to connect all of the pieces. And so that we really are, with that, trying to hit that sweet spot. Both budget committees have taken action where they want to support the full appropriation for the circular economy. So we'll just kind of say what broadly they support the goals of what we're trying to do as part of this program. If they were to give the money directly to CalRecycle for a loan program, yes, we could build it. Yes, we could rebuild RMDZ. It just would take a lot longer, and we would lose that expertise from GoBiz. But we would find another way to do it. Obviously, our partners in the legislature have to send the legislation to the governor, so we will figure out how to do it however they see fit. But that's what we were trying to hit, and we think that's the most efficient and effective way to hit it. But if the legislature prefers another path, we'll go another path.
Thank you.
You bet.
Great. Commissioner Sky, and then Davis.
Thank you, Director Regner, for joining us this morning and for engaging with us on the topics we're bringing up today. Quickly, and just to build on Commissioner Lappis's points, I think the RMDZ program has been a great success, partly because of the partnership with local agencies that are helpful. So if that can be incorporated into the climate catalyst concept as well, we'd love to be partners right side by side with you as you identify locations for these innovative new businesses. My question was, so my question was regarding the discussions on the budget, which has been incredibly exciting to see both the legislature and the governor investing in circular economy. And a big discussion has been the right split between funding for implementation, particularly of Senate Bill 1383 at the local level, and the need for infrastructure and other direct support. Do you see both of those being moved forward this year, or will some of that funding possibly be pushed back either to later this year or next year?
Gosh, that's a good question. And the legislature at this juncture is more appropriate to ask that question of. It's really in their court right now as opposed to us. But as former legislative staff, I can give you a little bit of my viewpoint on how I think they're going to handle things. So I think that they are probably interested in pursuing both. I think they are, based on the conversations that I've had, and what they've had in committee, I think they are supportive of both pathways. How that all plays out is another story, and when that plays out is a totally other story. And my understanding is that the budget process is kind of, because it's such a huge process this year, and so this wonderful windfall is so unexpected, and then the additional federal funds, that I think they're trying to parse out what is most urgent to get done. So I would venture to say that we may get pushed a little bit in terms of urgency. But the infrastructure piece is so incredibly important, as we all know, on 1383, for being a big part of the solution, but also as part of our recovery. And the governor sees all of the infrastructure building throughout the budget as part of our recovery and really prioritizes that. So I think there's a lot of discussion to be had between the Department of Finance and the legislature on where and when things land. Hope that answers your question, sort of.
It's very helpful. Thank you for sharing your insights, and it's very exciting to see all these developments.
I couldn't agree more. I am so incredibly excited. It's a real reflection. I think I shared with you guys when I met with you in April that this is a huge priority for the governor, and we could be talking about anything under the sun. And sometimes he would just look at me and just be, when I was working in his office, and just say, go fix that. So for him to actually put the resources in the budget to start that is really exciting for all of us.
Awesome. And Commissioner Davis, and then Dell.
So I'd like to, I'll follow up on what Kobe just mentioned about the local, the role of local government, but also I was glad to hear the discussion between you and Commissioner Lapis about trying to maintain some flexibility, some creativity in the Catalyst Fund, not have too rigid a standard, because we're trying to build an economy that we're building from scratch, right? If we knew what to do, we'd already be doing it. So I think that encourage that flexibility. There's a commission recommendation about a Cali PA permitting process that if you haven't taken a look at it, I encourage you to look at that as well. And really the essence of that process is already on the books, and it pulls together a lot of the state environmental permitting agencies. But the recommendation is to include local government, because you need a developer with a site to begin to work the permit process. Bring the local government into it. The CEQA analysis, the siting issues on things like a paper pulping plant that nobody's done in California. You know, to expect to walk into a planning department and find somebody who's even remotely knowledgeable about it is probably virtually nil. So take a look at that process as we move forward. I think it would accelerate and make things a lot easier to be working together.
Sean, I so appreciate that comment. I don't know that the fix for how to streamline all of the permitting associated with these businesses is going to be as simple as I'd like it to be. But what I will say is I had the great honor and pleasure to go look at a local composting facility in Napa a couple of weeks ago. And it was a real eye-opening experience to me to really see what they've been able to do in terms of technology and innovation in the field of composting. I grew up in Sonoma County in the 1980s. I have a much different memory of what compost smells like from the 1980s than what I experienced in Napa. And just was so incredibly impressed at the innovation that's going into really solving the environmental challenges around what we're trying to build within the circular economy. And what was really highlighted for me is that some of our existing laws and regulations, which are really meant to protect the environment and are really important, are inhibiting some of that innovation. And so part of what, in discussing with the Department of Finance and the governor's office, the creation of an Office of Innovation, part of the point of that was having a place within CalRecycle and staff within CalRecycle that are specifically designated to be out identifying those challenges, the places where we could be doing better, the places where we can be having conversations with the private sector, and then bringing those conversations back to our state counterparts and our local counterparts to figure out how to problem solve around those things. So really appreciate it. I think it'll take us a little while to get to that other piece, but it is really, my eye is on that prize of how do we make innovation not a hurdle in California, but really, you know, can't believe I even make this comparison. Nick will probably laugh at me, but in the CEQA process, there is the AB 900 process for projects that, it is expired, but for projects that met certain energy and environmental standards. And wouldn't it have been great if we looked at a process like that for composting, for recycling, for some of the things that are really meeting our larger environmental goals?
Yeah, CEQA impacts are impacts. They're not all detrimental impacts, and maybe focusing on the positive environmental impacts in CEQA analysis would be a start.
Exactly. So I have ideas. There are some things stirring in my head. It'll just take me a little while to figure out how to get them worked into the system.
Rachel, we just need to start composting at sports stadiums and we're all set.
Exactly.
Okay. So I think we've got Commissioner Dell, then Don Levy, and then we'll take one public comment, and we probably will be at time at that point. So go ahead, Commissioner Dell.
Great. Well, thanks for coming to talk with us again. And it's terrific to hear that you're really excited about the future and new technologies, innovation, investment. But I'm an environmental NGO, the Last Beach Cleanup, and the other environmental NGOs that I collaborate are extremely disturbed and distressed at this very moment because California is still the leader in exporting plastic waste and contaminated paper waste to poor countries. Since we've last spoke and you visit us, it's actually gotten worse. California now accounts for 27% of the U.S. exports of plastic waste to non-OECD countries. I'd like to know specifically what CalRecycle is doing to make sure that there's no harmful impact from these plastic wastes. Just last week, an article came out about the Palo Alto City Council, and they had a meeting, and their waste hauler, Green Waste, fully admits they don't know where their plastic waste is going. It's being exported. The article said that they don't know what the impacts are, how it's being treated, what's happening with it. Unlike Waste Management, who's agreed to not export residential plastic waste, and Republic Services, who's agreed to do that, there are still MRFs in this state and cities who are encouraging to export plastic waste. They claimed it was to meet climate goals and diversion goals. So I'd like to know specifically what CalRecycle is doing to stop this from happening. It really makes California look bad on the global stage that we're doing this, and also to question the 50% diversion goal, and if that's actually having a very negative effect on pushing our waste out to countries where brokers on the other end will just accept it, because that way MRFs can hit a diversion goal and it's cheaper than landfilling it in California. So thank you. It's a very serious question. While all this exciting stuff happens, the reality is, as we speak right now, I think 12 ships are getting loaded, 12 shipping containers of PVC waste go every day from California to Malaysia. Thank you.
Well, Jan, this is so incredibly important. And so just to give you a little bit of background on me and my background, when I was working for the Senate Environmental Quality Committee, my expertise and specialty was in toxic waste, which isn't typically, the legislation I analyzed wasn't typically the solid waste. But when we talk about what we do with solid waste or hazardous waste and the export of that, we create a whole other environmental problem. So in becoming director, one of my number one priorities was that California has an honest look in the mirror at the waste that we create, and we no longer call diversion and shipping containers to third world countries recycling. And I think that's very much part of the mandate of the commission, right, is that you guys are going to define what is recyclable and have that important conversation. Because when National Sword hit, everybody, kind of threw up their hands and said, well, that's how we recycle. Well, that's not recycling. So yes, we're all very excited about the May revise because it shows the governor's support and the legislature's support. for building the foundation of recycling here in the state of California. And the reason I bring up my background is one of the main pieces of legislation, or many pieces of legislation I dealt with for about a decade in Senate Environmental Quality Committee had to do with the Exide facility in Vernon, which is a battery smelter, and shutting down Exide. I spent a lot of time working and talking about Exide. But one of the questions that many of our members had, and that I would continuously bring up as we were dealing with Exide and battery smelting, is if we shut down this facility, which needed to be shut down for the health of people of Vernon, what are we doing with California's batteries? And the answer to that, unfortunately, is that we're shipping them across the border to 4 communities in Mexico that have 0 environmental protections for their communities, and we're creating Superfund sites and environmental lead hazards for 4 communities in another nation. And I think that is absolutely deplorable, and it is not the answer to our problems. I think the original diversion goals were really important policy step and policy legislation to get the state to really focus and local governments to truly focus on no longer landfilling. But as you point out, diversion is not recycling, and what local governments do and how they contract for addressing those materials that they are diverting is not necessarily recycling, and we really need to address that. So I think the budget investments are the first step in that. We're trying to build the infrastructure here in the state of California with public and private partnerships to build that infrastructure so that we can deal with our own waste. But then we really do need to go back and look at the statute and say, is this the right policy direction? So I think things like minimum content standards, like the Ting bill from 2 years ago, really make a huge difference in saying, no, your product needs to have recyclable material in it, or your product needs to recycle. But this really needs to be a conversation between the administration, our nonprofits, our public and private partners, and the legislature on, do we have the right policies for the state of California to truly deal with our waste the way we think we should?
And I would add, I think our first recommendation on EPR for hazardous waste would really fit with this battery discussion, since we just lost the battery EPR bill, which was a big loss because that was first in our report as far as putting out the fires and getting the cost down in this entire industry. So if the manufacturers have to take these things back and deal with it, they tend to use the stuff they have to take back instead of digging up more virgin materials. I'd also say, adding on to what Jan said, that plastic exports, I think one of the biggest issues is there's a real lack of transparency. And I think what the haulers are saying is they can't even figure out, like, they're not getting told the information. And is that something the state could require, I guess, is a question I have. If it's outside of the law, I don't think CalRecycle has the authority to do that alone, yeah. So that actually could be a recommendation of this commission, is that legislation be considered that requires transparency on the sale of these materials, so that everybody knows exactly what's happening. So that's something for us to consider. And real quickly, I think we have Commissioner Dunleavy, and then we have some public comment.
Yes, good morning, Director Wagner. Thank you for joining us. The commission, back in February, we drafted and submitted a letter to your office and the governor's office, the one and only urgency letter from this commission, asking for help for the recycling centers in the underserved areas, and to help open up recycling centers in the underserved areas. As exciting as the revised budget was, I didn't see any help for opening recycling centers in these underserved areas. I think there'll be 5 more pilot programs, but those will only affect 5 communities. 2 of the 5 that were approved already probably won't start until September, October, maybe. So they were awarded back in January or February of 2020. So a 15-month launch time for a pilot program. It doesn't look like we're going to see people in the underserved areas have an opportunity to redeem their containers for quite some time. The fund balance, by most people's estimate, is exceeding $400 million in cash. Are there any plans in the near future to help the struggling recycling centers in these high-cost areas, especially the Bay Area, west of the 405 down in Southern California, even down in Palm Springs, Palm Desert, Indio area? We have these recycling deserts. So what are the plans from Cal Recycle to open up recycling centers and support the recycling centers in these underserved areas?
Jeff, God, that is such an important issue. And you and I have talked about this a couple of times. And I continuously talk to the legislature about this, and especially these islands and deserts that we've created where there aren't redemption opportunities because our existing system is not working the way it's supposed to. So we are very focused as the world starts to become a little less closed. We are really focused on helping those, especially completely unserved areas, Humboldt County, the west of the 405, as you said, and some of these other areas, and have asked the legislature for that additional funding for the pilot projects. And what we would really like to do is have a very active role in helping to develop the pilot projects in the places that are of most need. I completely agree. We have a lot of unredeemed containers at this juncture that have left the fund. I don't know if it's upward of 400 million, but with significant resources. And I would like to figure out a way to get those dollars specifically funneled into underserved areas. And to those recycling systems. As you well know, as much as anybody else on this call, the statute as it's crafted is pretty restraining for the department in terms of what we can do. So we are definitely open to conversations and suggestions of how do we do this, but we are under some pretty interesting statutory constraints on how we can do it. So I think the pilot projects are I know 15-month start time is a lot. Hopefully, given that experience, we'd be able to do it a lot more quickly. We've had some initial conversations internally of how we can do that if we can get those dollars for pilot projects and really start getting things off and running. But look forward to the ongoing conversation with the commission and with you and our other experts in the field of how we can do this more quickly.
So pilots are basically it right now, and it's just trying to expedite them, is what I'm hearing. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh, is things, at least my computer's freezing a little bit. I don't know if anybody else is.
We can hear you, Heidi. You're good.
Yeah.
Oh, you can hear me, okay.
We can hear you. You're good.
Very good, okay, well, yeah, I mean, this has been the one, there's two things that the commission had as priorities in their last report, and that was stopping the exports to countries that cannot handle it, and really the urgency of fixing the bottle bill to make it much more convenient so people during a pandemic who need the money more than ever can get it back. And it just, those things remain, I guess, is the way it is in the report at this point. So if there's anything we can do to help, please let us know as well to be more effective advocates on these two things.
And Heidi, I think it's just important what Director Wagner mentioned about, making sure to take a look at what was created maybe 20 years ago with AB 939, right at the beginning of recycling, and what enhancements or modifications need to be done. And it's great to hear from the director that that's going to be looked at.
Absolutely. And I think we have one public comment. So, I'm sorry. Did you want to go ahead?
Oh, I was just going to say, we are always open and excited to have the conversation about how can we do things better. So I welcome the opportunity to have these conversations with all of you as a group or individually from your organization's perspective. Always looking to improve. So I really, truly Commissioner Dunleavy's input and just, again, being on the ground has given me a lot to think about. And I just love all of the constructive input that you all give me individually and as a group. I've really appreciated it.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure working with you, I'm sure, from all of us. So the public comment, please, Ben.
Yes, and this public comment, I'd also like them to know that they should probably direct this to the next CalRecycle public meeting on June 15th. And it ties into what Commissioner Don Levy was asking. It says, for Director Wagner, what is CalRecycle doing to fund new redemption centers through legislation and or the budget? And that's from Liza Tucker at Consumer Watchdog.
Yep. Okay, well, that's a question for, a public meeting, it sounds like, instead of the commission, because I think it's kind of along the lines of what we just discussed. And we are running out of time. I guess the only thing I'd like to add is organics. We don't talk about source reduction very much, but with the drought, and it's not just a little drought, we're in an enormous drought. And I think the seriousness of this has really, truly not hit everybody yet. But this is maybe a great time, I'm just going to throw it out there personally, that to reduce water and waste by really giving incentives like the state of Minnesota is doing to actually buy grass, to buy the grass back. It shouldn't be our number one crop for water when we're closing down farmers, and make sure that we, give supports for pollinator habitat, et cetera. We're about ready to lose the monarchs because we aren't even, providing them any food anymore. So those kinds of things that the state could look at could help source reduction of organics, as well as reduce water use as well, and support our pollinators. So just wanted to throw that out there as my own personal idea, and Kobe seems to like it too, so hopefully others do as well. I just want to say thank you so much, Director Wagner. We just cannot thank you enough for all that you're doing already, and you're just slipping right into that job and just getting right to it, and we really appreciate your being willing to speak with us, and we will continue this conversation, I'm sure, individually and as a group. But thank you again, and if you ever want to come back or think there's something you want to discuss with us, just let me know too, and we'll get you back on the agenda. Don't want to take too much of your time and keep requesting you show up at every meeting, but we are working on that report, and hopefully your staff are looking at it and letting you know what we plan to put in it, because this is our last 2 bites at the apple before we submit the first full report.
Excellent. Thank you so much for the invite. I really love this conversation, and welcome the opportunity to come back in a few months and continue the conversation, maybe post-budget, hopefully with lots of money to spend, so you guys can help me figure out how to put that together.
Sure, we'll be able to help with
that. Excellent. Thank you guys so much for the time this morning. Good luck with the rest of your work today.
Thanks so much. And we're probably taking the rest of the summer off. So,
oh, that's right. Please do that. You guys totally have earned that.
Yeah, I think so. Thanks again so much, Director. Really appreciate your time today.
Thanks. Have a good day.
All right, you too.
Bye.
Okay, so we can move on back to agenda item number 5 on the commission report. And I think Commissioner Ward, we were on page 10. And just starting urgent action to support redemption, which is actually what we were just discussing. Or priorities of the commission, that's right. So this is the section that basically Ted wrote, I edited, about our priorities. So I think we should read this because this is really the important meat. Unless somebody has already read it and has any suggestions, I'm certainly eager to take those, but let's just read it real quickly. When Governor Newsom signed the legislation calling for the formation of this commission, California's ambitious goals for increasing recycling and composting and reducing wasting of materials via landfilling or incineration were already failing. For recycling, over 30% of buyback redemption centers that were open in 2013 had closed by 2021, and market shifts and the new international export restrictions have increased the challenges and costs of processing and marketing bottles and cans. The public is less likely to participate in recycling if they feel items are really not being recycled or environmental justice concerns exist. Any comments on that part or concerns? No? A thumbs up? Okay. And we'll keep going. So increased, sorry, if you could scroll back up to the language right above it. Let's see. So 30 back, oh, sorry. Okay, so to restore the public trust in California's recycling system, the commission called for unusually swift action on 2 issues. This is exactly what we just discussed. One is end the export of materials to countries that cannot properly recycle them to our environmental or labor standards. And 2, make the promise of a deposit program for the bottle bill real by urgently increasing the number of redemption centers so every Californian can conveniently get their deposits returned. On the global stage, we need to first do no harm and assure that materials we export for recycling are getting recycled into new products while protecting people and the planet. Is everyone okay with that language? Okay. Excellent. I see nods. If anybody has...
Heidi?
Yep.
I mean, it has number 1 and number 2. I mean, you know, we were just talking about this with Director Wagner. Isn't there a number 3 that says we are redefining or, you know, updating the definition of recyclability and compostability? Isn't that also a very important message that we're trying to do and provide out there? Not only the access to deposit programs and obviously where the materials are, but then what truly is going to be recycled and composted, right? I mean, that's part of what we're...
That could be. We could add that and make that as a priority. I think these were the 2 things that we had previously deemed as urgent. If we wish as a group to deem that as urgent, that we actually label things, you know, correctly and define them correctly as what is recyclable, that makes sense to me. Is there our Commissioner Sky? I think you're next. You want to speak to that?
I do. So I think that can be incorporated into number 1. And if there was a third priority that might merit being added here, it's really about what we labeled stopping the fires, which is addressing the most urgent health and safety issues and potential contaminants in the recycling markets.
That won't work. Just trying.
Yeah.
That help?
I think that's kind of a big change. I think we'd probably...
It is a big change. Yeah, I think back to where we
probably have to take a stab at this again. Or we can get Commissioner Segura to submit some track changes that he might like to see in there.
I can do that. Like that, we don't slow things down. I mean, it's really just, I like what Kobe just mentioned. It's when we look at exporting, you know, materials, we're trying not to export them. But when we have them in the state and we do something with them, they have to have the ability to be recyclable and compostable, right? Or else we're going to end up with materials just here somewhere where we don't want them to be. That's just what I'm trying to, because I think that's important of what we're trying to do here as a commission.
Yeah.
May I
and
respond to that?
Yep.
I really appreciate that input, and I would just suggest that we maybe make it a separate paragraph, because I really feel like that's why the commission was formed, or those were some of the core reasons to help define what is recyclable, what is compostable. And so then these other things were essentially selected priorities based on the situation that we faced as we were formed. So I think they're kind of 2 separate things, but I don't disagree that having them up front and in this introduction would be appropriate.
Well, this section was based on, I mean, what Commissioner Ward and I were doing, we were just trying to highlight the things we had already as a group highlighted. If we want to change what we're highlighting as a group, that's totally fine. And I know Commissioner Lapis had brought up, he thought, you know, it was that important, this defining of recyclability and policy 15, that maybe that be actually in the report to that degree. I would suggest we still leave it in the back, but I'm fine if we think that that should be mentioned as a priority in the report, because it gets to the root of so many other things. So if everybody's okay with that concept, I would suggest that Commissioner Segura draft some minor changes to this section and submit them to Ted and I, and we can put them in there with track changes so that all of you can see, but we'll accept the rest of it. And then we'll put in Commissioner Osagura's proposals in track changes so it's easier for you to identify what you haven't seen before. Does that make sense? Is everybody okay with that? And then I can send an email out to everyone saying, it's in there, go take a look if you have any, you know, suggestions. Because the next time we meet is our last, at least proposed last at this point, hopefully. Okay, so policy number 10. Controls and plastics.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Davis and Commissioner
Did you want to you reference AJ4? Do you want to reference AB8, AD1, which also limits
yes.
the
yes. because that limits the credit, diversion credit, and that's another great,
Yeah. Okay.
So, Commissioner Ward, bless you. Yeah, AB 881, and we'll just white yellow that so we can remember to go back and fix it. Okay, great, thanks. And Commissioner Lapis?
I have the same comment about 881, and then I have some comments about the next paragraph, but I don't know if you want to read it first or...
On the commission's recommendations letter and all that? Yeah, go ahead, and then we'll get right into it.
Yeah, I'm uncomfortable with several of the statements in this paragraph. I don't think it's fair to say that it's fallen on deaf ears. I think there have been several...
Oh, sorry, we meant to change that. Commissioner Ward, I thought that was too harsh too, and that's not, thank you for catching that. Somehow we didn't get back to it. We were working very late.
And then, so that needs to be just reworded, if nothing else.
Well, let's think about it real quick. So in contrast, the commission's recommendations from the letter submitted to legislature, I thought we had Ted said something, it has not appeared to have had the same level of response as some of the other.
I would disagree with that. I mean, there's been legislation introduced. I think among the commission members, we disagree about which bill is the most responsive, but there have been several bills introduced in response, which is the same thing that could be said of the other bills mentioned above. I just don't think that's a fair characterization.
Well, it's not an urgency bill, huh?
Well, I mean, yes and no.
That was the
yes,
thinking.
it's not an urgency bill, but I think that there's still a very strong likelihood that at least one of the bills would become an urgency bill.
Would you like to share preferred language?
I would probably want to take a stab at rewriting this whole paragraph.
Okay. So we were just trying to get at that there was an urgency on only two things. This was one of them, and there's no urgency response. However, the way we saw it, and if we're wrong and the commission disagrees, that's totally fine. I think we just agree on the concept, and then somebody can put pen to paper. So I
also think, I'm tempted to also call out 1454, but I know that there isn't unanimous support among commission members. So I'm thinking maybe we should not mention specific bills, including the Wood bill. I think we're supporting, I believe CAW is supporting the Wood bill, but I would argue the Bloom bill is probably more responsive to the letter than anything else that's out there. But I know that we don't have unanimous.
If we can't agree on the bills, then I think that's probably a good way to go, is to say, there's been legislation introduced that's answering some of the recommendations of the commission, but none of them have been exactly what we asked for, because I think we asked for, 9 or 10 things in our letter. It was very specific.
Yeah, I'll take a stab at this, try to make it neutral.
8. Okay. We asked specifically for 8 things in our letter that was an urgent letter. So, and we were going to attach it to this report to make sure everybody sees that again, if they have any questions. So if you want to take a stab at it, then we'll have to finish this paragraph at the next meeting. So the sooner we get those proposed edits. And did anybody else want to speak to this before we move on? I think Commissioner Osagura and Sky, were you both?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I just think that it's really important when we, because I do believe there's an importance and urgency to having buyback centers and the enhancements that there should be in different places to allow for folks to utilize them. But I guess I'll just say, I'll just read this. And, for me, it's really important that we don't vilify one thing for the other. There's a need for enhancements. And so for me, I would just, I'll send it over to Nick as he reworks or looks at this paragraph, which is California should continue to enhance both curbside and buyback systems There is a complementary nature to curbside and buyback programs that allows for 100% recycling accessibility for all Californians. And I believe the message from this commission should be, let's enhance, let's make better, let's improve systems that provide 100% accessibility. And I just want to make sure a paragraph does not vilify something that's working. And so I just wanted to make sure to make that statement.
Okay, well, would you like to be both working on this? We could make a little, well, it's either one person drafts it and then sends it to.
I'll just send that I'll send the paragraph over to Nick. I think, I feel comfortable, Nick, rewriting the paragraph or taking a look at it.
Okay. I'm sorry, Commissioner Ward?
Yeah, while I appreciate Commissioner Oseguera's input, I really feel like this paragraph is about what's happening with buyback centers, what's happening with places you get your deposits back. And I just don't think it's the place to bring up curbside. While I don't question the value and the good service that curbside collection provides, this paragraph's about drop-off centers. It's about buyback centers. It's not about curbside.
Well, I think that's what we focused on in the letter. Because we really did, it was 8 specific recommendations specific to redemption locations. So I was trying to just base it off of what we already did and agreed on as a commission. I'm happy, to reword what we were in tone, certainly, but if we get away from just the letter, I think we're getting away from what Ted and I were trying to do, was just highlight what we thought was urgent as a group. So I guess that's the way I tend to think of it. Commissioner Davis, did you want to say something?
Sure, Sanborn, I think give me as well.
I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead. I'm getting lost. Commissioner Sky.
Thanks. So I just, I certainly don't think it's helpful to vilify programs or the legislature, but I do think that the current buyback recycling program and the bottle bill is definitely not working. And I think that was the intent of this paragraph. What I would suggest is, instead of starting in contrast, we should say, in addition, the commission had submitted a number of specific recommendations to address the urgent need to fix the bottle bill in California. And then just talk about the fact that a number of bills have been proposed, but none of them have been made urgent. And in the meantime, there continue to be, particularly in certain areas of the state, significant gaps in the availability of options for people to redeem their bottles and get their deposits back. And that's continuing to be an issue. So that's the tone that I would propose if there's broad consensus on that approach. And Commissioner Lapis agrees, and I trust him to draft something.
Kobe, if you want to take a stab at writing down what you just said, I mean, I think that captures what I was thinking as well.
I think Ted and I heard that pretty loud, and we've also got the video, so we go back and watch it sometimes. We're happy to do that, because I think that's exactly what we were trying to do, and we didn't do it very well. So that's why we're doing this exercise. So, okay. All right. Well, then, Commissioner Ward, you and I will just rewatch this and make sure. And then if somebody has something they really feel is a gem of wording that you really want to see in there, just email Commissioner Ward and I, and we'll play with it, and then we'll throw it back out to you all. Okay. So we'll have to keep moving here.
Heidi, I'm sorry.
Yep.
I wanted to point out that SB 451 now has an urgency clause. So there's a lot of reference to urgent in here. And so you're going to need to somehow work around that.
SB 451. I'm sorry. I'm losing the numbers. Which one is that?
That's the pilot program.
The Dodd bill.
Yeah.
The Dodd bill has an urgency clause. Okay.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if by the time we submit the report, there are other bills that have urgency clauses as well. So I'm not sure how to handle that.
Well, we can't predict the future, and it's all up in the air. So I would say we just say what we want and then hope it manifests.
Well, if we say they're not urgent, then they are. I guess that was my point. There's a lot of reference in there.
Okay, so that's another point that we'll address when we rewrite this. Thank you very much. Excellent point. Thank you. Great input. And then Commissioner Ward, did you want to say something?
I totally appreciate all this feedback. Thank you.
Yeah, it's super helpful. Okay, so now urgent action to support redemption. This is all new, so again, if we didn't get this right, now's the time to speak up. So Californians should be able to trust that when they place a recyclable item in a recycling bin, that something good will come of that effort, and be assured that their recyclables won't end up endangering vulnerable populations or become a source of pollution or environmental harm. They should be able to trust that if they are made to pay a deposit, that there will be a place not too far away where they could get that deposit back. This commission highlighted 2 actions as being especially urgent to restore trust in our recycling systems. Inside California, and should we say which ones here, Commissioner Ward? Or we do say it, I think.
This is the introduction to the policy, so it is at the bottom.
Yeah, okay, got it. So inside California, the most urgent priority is to add more redemption centers for bottle bill. I wouldn't say bottle bill return, it would be bottle return or redemption. We must address the shortage of convenient locations for recycling as the commission requested in our letter to the governor's office and legislature dated February 3rd, 2021, with the lack of response. And again, we have to be careful what we say here. Yeah, we asked the chair and vice chair to draft. Well, that was kind of true. Immediately after we submitted that, we didn't see any response. Well, we could say with a lack of response within a few months, we asked the chair and vice chair to draft an editorial, which was run in Cal Matters in April. So that's what led to the Cal Matters op-ed, which we will also attach.
A way to make it more positive would be to say, to further emphasize the importance of this issue.
Yes, I like that better. To further emphasize the importance of this issue. Yep. Probably more accurate too. Okay. So California's most urgent and direct pleas with respect to the bottle bill have thus far gone unanswered. So again, this is probably not the right tone. So we should say something to the effect of California's most urgent and direct pleas with respect to the bottle bill have thus far, it's not been unanswered. There's stuff happening. So that's not the right word. Thoughts on that, anybody?
Still need to be addressed.
Yeah, still need to be addressed, thank you. Though they were explicitly supported by the League of Cities, Rural Counties, and CSAC. The inconsistency of having the state call upon cities and counties and this commission to do the heavy lifting, to take swift action to meet ambitious recycling and composting goals, and to concurrently, and again, let's not use the word ignore, we should change that, concurrently, let's see, I don't know, not respond quickly or something like that, broadly supported specific requests to address these issues is disappointing. And I think that's probably a little harsh too, because again, things are happening.
I would want to say this whole sentence is probably unnecessarily.
And it seems that we already kind of said this stuff above. I'm wondering if we should just take this whole thing out. Is everybody okay if we just take this whole section out? Yeah, okay. So then we just talk about who supported the request. So then we'll just move down to, with several counties now having experienced periods with few, if any, centers to redeem their CRE deposits, many critical elements of this historically successful program are essentially being, this is harsh again,
yeah,
or something, Ted, I don't know, killed by a failure.
I'm sorry, when we don't have any centers for a long time, the frustration builds up. I'm happy to change the language.
Okay, so essentially being killed by a failure Well, being hurt by a
being
failure.
hurt
Yeah.
or opportunities missed, or
Yeah.
it's something that points to the issue. Because up above where we say please, is it please or recommendations? I don't know. Please to me
Yeah.
means
Yeah.
I mean, what we're trying to provide recommendations. So those haven't been heard, but please is so broad. So.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see, any critical elements of this historically successful program? Yeah, and direct requests.
Yeah,
Recommendations. Correct. Recommendations is what it was, yeah. Good. Much better. Several counties now having experienced periods with few, if any, centers. Many critical elements of this historically successful program are continuing to decline under a failure to address known issues. Why don't we just say a failure? They're continuing to decline, period. Is everybody okay with that? Yeah, I see nodding. Okay. Okay, and again, this failure, I would say lack of this.
You could just strike failure and say this compounds.
This compounds the public's faltering faith in the state of California in a central role unique in bottle bill programs. Yeah, this is very unique that California basically runs the bottle bill. Other states, the producers do. Really supports the CRV deposit system statewide. We are also concerned the public is losing faith in recycling programs in general and the state running the program yeah, I think that's a whole extra sentence that needs to come out, that we through the bottle bill. Is everybody agreement with that?
And the following sentence as well.
All the others have producer. Yeah. Let's just take that out.
We do not have consensus on that.
As the funds that formerly flowed through the redemption centers to individuals have been increasingly shifted to collection companies offering curbside recycling, the proportional contamination of the separated commodities has also increased beyond the level. So this is a lot of new language, and I'm not sure where everybody's at on this. So I would ask one of the others, or maybe Commissioner Osigura, do you agree with that statement? I don't know.
I don't.
Okay.
Don't. I mean, I think as we were talking before with Director Wagner, right? As a state, we implemented regulations to boost recycling.
Yeah.
In terms of boosting recycling, we implemented systems to effectively get, residents throughout the state to increase participation. All that was a tremendous success. And since I feel like I'm not going to use the word fail, but we don't seem to, highlight how well the state did for a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
China created its own problems with materials that might have been stamped recyclable, to Commissioner Dell's, comments, but that really weren't recyclable, right? And so we're dealing with that issue. So trying to say that a certain portion of, companies that are helping with environmentalism are the fault to create contamination is really reducing this to something very, very simple, which it's not. It's more complex than that.
Everything is complicated in our industry.
Yes. So
okay.
Yeah.
That's how it reads now. Let's see if we got it. So as the funds that formerly flowed through the redemption centers to individuals have been increasingly shifted to collection companies offering why don't we just say shifted to curbside recycling operators? Maybe that would be shorter. Dramatically expanded the access to recycling. The proportional contamination of the separated commodities has also increased beyond the levels accepted by major buyers of those commodities. Now, Commissioner Osigura, is that?
See, for me, what it should say is, as market demands shifted, because that's what happened.
Right.
Then, those commodities that are being purchased also changed, right? There was a time where China was buying a significant amount of recyclables. It
Right.
was. And we all, looked at whether it was private companies or NGOs or governmental agencies that those materials were being recycled. And so now that the market has shifted, we are addressing that shift, which I think is very important.
Yeah, no, that's very good. Well said. Commissioner Madrano.
We want to do a time check because we're supposed to be.
I was just going to do that. We've got 8 minutes, but this report, this is, unless we do another meeting after the next one and schedule it today, we've got to get through this report and this language. Otherwise, you're all on your own to read it and provide comments at the next meeting and have language ready, because that's the only way we'll get through this. So let's just real quickly, without a place to get your deposit back, CRV becomes a tax. Actually, I will suggest that you all read the rest of this section and see if we captured it correctly. And if not, please let us know very quickly your suggested changes, and Ted and I will massage it, and then we'll send out an email. It's done. It's stopped moving. You know, you guys read it and bring it to all your comments to the meeting, and that'll be our last shot at it. Okay.
Just one quick edit. I think the sentence just before the highlight can be deleted, and instead you can say, as market demands shifted, recycling has shifted from buyback centers to more curbside collection. And then I think it flows to the next process better.
So as market demands shifted, recycling has shifted from buyback to curbside. Or curbized, whichever. Better done in group. Okay. And then companies are, so we can delete companies are addressing these shifts, because that, yeah. And put the proportional contamination of the separated commodities. So I think that part we don't need to change now. We've kind of reworded this section, so we don't need it to be yellow, but I would put everything below that in yellow, as we have not agreed to this yet.
Fine.
Because we do have to keep moving through the rest of the report on the content, on the order and how we're doing this. So again, let's stop the fires, that we kept that. A lot of that language there is all the same except for the very end here, where it says, we were delighted that a bill was introduced to require EPR for batteries by Senator Berman. And I don't know if everybody was delighted, so if that's the wrong word, speak up.
It was Newman.
Or Newman, sorry, yep, it was Newman. Senator Newman. But it did not move out of the Appropriations Committee in May. EPR for batteries, which includes batteries and electronic products, remains a very high and urgent priority of this commission due to the fact that we are literally going to see insurance companies leaving the waste management business due to the high risk and cost of fires. Well, maybe we could say literally being told that insurance companies, because that's what we've been told by SBWMA. They've said they've heard it directly from their insurers. I don't want to say for a fact it's going to happen, but that's what we're hearing is going to happen.
And Heidi, instead of the delighted, would it be we were encouraged that a bill was introduced, right?
Yeah.
I think that shows what was needed, and I think what we
Yep. Much better word. Okay. Let's see. Commission due to the fact that some operators have been told, yeah. So facilities will not have the ability to self-insure, and some facilities can be expected, or can be, some facilities, I would say, may stop operations. I mean, it could happen. That's what we're hearing from SBWMA in particular. Does anybody disagree with that, or, okay. If the real threat of closing MRFs and other facilities is not considered urgent to address, we are unsure what would be deemed urgent. That's a pretty bold statement. I'm not sure if that's the right thing to say, but we're trying to underscore that fires are a real serious problem, and that's what this commission has said. But if we can't even get out of the first appropriations committee, I don't know what the priorities are. So if you guys have better wording.
Maybe you can start at the beginning where it says if, and make that there is a real threat of the closure of MRFs and other facilities if this urgent matter is not addressed.
Mhm.
That was
Oh.
perfect.
Well, I'm sorry, again, where?
Oh God. Sorry, Ted.
I can
Darn
go
it.
back to the video, just
Yeah,
highlight
can
it.
you go to, yeah, can you go to the video? Because
Yeah, I can't ever remember what I say either.
yeah, I think it sounded fine that way. Then I'm going to butcher it if I say it the second time.
Yeah, just put it in yellow, Ted, and then put CO Segura's comment, yeah. Change, because he changed it and it was good. Okay, very good. Thank you. All right, so then that's that. And then we get into stop undermining recovery economics. This was a new ad from the last report because we've said we don't have a fair and level playing field. There's a lot of virgin extraction subsidies, which is undermining the entire economics of the recycling system. So this is all new language, so we need your input. Sustainable businesses that are part of a circular economy can only be viable when they have a fair and level playing field. Today's economy is tilted towards extraction, having evolved by providing subsidies to what were, at the time, new extractive industries, such as oil and gas, timber harvesting, and mining. The Commission believes that we cannot achieve the goals of the Commission until the goal of the state of California is to pursue achieving a circular economy. And now that it's in the budget, I don't know if we should say that anymore, maybe something softer, or another sustainable economic model, and the policies of the state align with the model. Our current state policies are driving linear make-take-waste behavior, which the state concurrently says it wants to end under other policies, such as achieving the recycling goal or GHG reductions. We must do the hard work of implementing harmonized policies capable of achieving the vision and goals of the state. To achieve the goal of a circular and sustainable system, we must remove the economic support for extractive industries and consider offering support to circular businesses until they are at scale. Thoughts, Commissioner Sky?
So the last part is a good way to summarize it, and instead of the highlighted sentence, it's really about aligning with what the governor has said is his goal, which is to create a circular economy.
Yep.
We have to address the subsidies.
And I think we say that through mentioning the budget revision, because that's the first time I've seen it come out of the governor's office about the circular economy. So we should mention it there, because otherwise I don't know what we'd point to say that that's there. That's a really good point.
I believe it's been mentioned in previous budget documents as well.
If you have suggestions on other links, that would be great. Just send them to us and we'll make sure we get them in there. Are there any other concerns about this section? And we're going to have to move on. We're at 10:30. So I want to quickly go through the rest of this report to just highlight where we are, and then we've got to get the policies done. And we'll see where we are with time. So again, the shifting to a clean and green circular economy and the policies that we had here, we identified what the Ellen MacArthur Foundation definition is of circular economy, and that the proposal describes a wide variety of existing economic subsidies. This is the policy that was done about removing subsidies in the introduction. So Commissioner Sky or anybody else, if you have any suggestions to this language, please let us know. We should keep moving down quickly to see if there's anything else, because we're going to have to ask everybody to read these on your own and send us your, or else we're going to end up not having enough time at the next meeting and having to wordsmith this whole report. So the other big header is quickly eliminate problem products. So we're trying to get to the front end of the problem before it's a crisis at the back end. And this language here was trying to get at that. If it doesn't, again, please let us know. And I guess to Ted, should we leave these as tracked? Because we aren't having time to go through them as individually as we would like, so that the commission can then see what we didn't go through together. The ones that we did go through together, let's make those black. So that way, and I'm seeing nodding, so hopefully that'll...
Yeah, I will do that after the meeting, yes.
Okay, well, it's fresh in our minds. We should...
Could
Okay.
I?
Yeah.
One thing that jumps out at me is the statement about it's too cumbersome and inefficient to create separate legislation for each material type of product. I think I agree with the general sentiment, but I can also imagine that being thrown in our face every time we do anything for an individual product like batteries or
Well, we could reword
I could even
it
see this
to
being
say-
interpreted as a criticism of something like the Friedman Bill on packaging, for example.
I think it's an excellent point. So I think maybe we could reword that. And if you have suggestions on how to reword it to say, we've tried, there's been attempts at trying framework and delegation to CalRecycle before. It's, heavy lift. They haven't passed. And maybe we say it is cumbersome and time consuming to attempt to create, but sometimes that's all we can get. I don't know. However you want to say it would be fine.
I would just suggest if you delete 2, so it's just more factual, it is cumbersome and inefficient, and you can delete attempt to.
Yeah.
We still do it because it's the only tool we have right now.
Yeah.
But
It's slow. Way slower than the market is at throwing stuff at us. Okay.
Thank you, Nick.
Yeah, that was good. And if you reread it and have language suggestions, just let us know. Thanks. And then keeping compost clear of contaminants, that was the introduction to the precautionary principle and problem products. Again, if you have changes, just let us know. Following the hierarchy and prevention first. We did introduction there. Again, same thing. We'll leave it green, and if we'll approve it at the next meeting, unless you give us changes. But if you can give us changes in the next few days, that would be great, so everybody has time to look at them. And I think we just got to keep scrolling down. We're not going to have time to read anything else in depth. And then producer responsibilities, we did introductions there. A very important section. So hopefully we can adopt these policies today, get them just kind of rubber stamped at the second meeting of the month, and then really focus on this report next meeting.
I have a question on this particular section, and it goes to Commissioner Davis, which is, here we have the producer responsibility section, and we're covering some of the design element and packaging elements, the design for recyclability, the label restriction. We're covering carpeting and flooring, but I have not yet incorporated the producer responsibility for market development thing because it's kind of a different angle on producer responsibility. And so my question to you, Commissioner Davis, is would you prefer it up front here or in the market development section?
I don't know that can it only be in one place? Yeah, I mean, I thought it also belonged higher up, and I was going to make a comment to that effect. So I think showing things more than once, it's what we're doing is not that simple where it's a linear spot, right? Everything circles back. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll make some notes about where I think that one fits.
All right.
And in the market development section, there's reference to the subsidy policy, for example, or the export policy. So I think when it's appropriate to the context, put it in more than once. I think my problem, Ted, was finding links, and so now there's more. At least the draft policies are all up, so I should be able to. I'll drop some links in on some of my recommendations.
And we're at 10:35, so we really need to move to the policies. I just got to...
Before we move on, can I flag that I don't think there is consensus that we want to have manufacturers run or operate programs, which is that middle sentence.
Say the legislature, CalRecycle should set the performance standards. CalRecycle essential role to ensure that recycling goals are met.
I don't think there's consensus that the producer should fund, design, and operate the programs.
Okay. So we should,
well,
and we can discuss that too, because we have that policy on producer responsibilities for market development.
Isn't that fundamental to producer responsibility though? So I'm confused if there was not
well, there's been disagreement amongst people in this commission as to whether producers have the capacity to run a program correctly. So I think that's what Nick's getting at.
And there are we have different types of programs. We have the bottle bill and the e-waste program that are run by the state that I would argue are still producer responsibility programs. But there's also...
Our definitions are not aligning at all. So we have to be careful and make sure that we can all agree with this language.
Yeah,
So
but I
maybe
think
the
more
caveat-
importantly, there's strong disagreement over a specific bill, and it sounds like this could be weighing in on that bill, even though I don't think that was the intent.
Yeah, it's not. Okay.
Just add a caveat at the beginning. For programs where EPR is a good pathway, the legislature or CalRecycle should. Yeah.
For programs for which EPR is a promising path, all EPR products through, okay.
I was going to actually add that at the beginning of the sentence that said the legislature, not at the top of the paragraph. So can you copy that text and then undo?
And then move it down to, or just cut it and put it down in front of the legislature, right?
Yeah. But I didn't intend to to delete the first part. Yeah. Right there.
So for all EPR or product stewardship programs, robust public oversight and enforcement to ensure fair and level playing field are essential. And CalRecycle acknowledges that through their checklist. For programs for which EPR is a promising path, the legislature or CalRecycle should set the program performance standards, and then producers should fund design. So that's where an operate is the question. So Nick, I always say potentially operate, or?
I mean, I might leave it at set the program performance standards for the producers to achieve, and just leave it at that. I think we could all agree with that.
Okay. Yeah, whatever yeah.
Something along those lines, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. Okay, then CalRecycle has the essential role of oversight. Okay, so we've got to keep moving. And I just saw that Senator Dodd just tweeted out that SB 451 was approved by unanimous Senate vote. So it's on to the Assembly. That's the Bottle Bell pilot program. Okay, so we're going to have to leave it here. So we stopped on page, whatever page this is, Commissioner Ward 23?
22. 23. And we're now getting into input from other committees.
Okay, so we're going to leave it at page, on the report, page 22. So all of you need to be very careful to look at the language after that. We will not change any of that black. We'll leave it track changes so you can know that that has changed from when you really looked at it. But we really need to move on to committee reports and policy recommendations for possible approval. And the order that I thought we would go through is to check things off as quickly as possible on agenda item 6 here. Starting with the policies that we're in the last report, but we're updated and need a second reading. And the ones that I have listed are number 3 policy, which is we merge the precautionary principle and problem products. So maybe we can start with that, and Commissioner Sky and Ward, you can explain what you did here, and maybe Commissioner Sky can do that while Commissioner Ward's pulling it up.
This one should be very quick. Essentially, because there's a good amount of overlap between the precautionary principle and problem products policies, we just merged them, and in the areas where there is overlap, we combine them. So it's a little bit shorter. There's essentially no new content in this merged proposal, and I thought that was a good recommendation from Commissioner Ward. So you can see the recommendations in particular are essentially the exact same ones, just reordered a little bit to flow better. So any questions on this?
I would like to move that we adopt this as a final approval and incorporate it in the final report.
Is everybody okay with that? Thumbs up? We don't need to do first and second. Everybody's good with it. I don't see anybody, because this has already basically language been approved, and it's just simplifying So thank you so much for your work on that, both Commissioners Ward and Sky. So that is done, and Commissioner Ward, we can move that into the file as done and number it after this meeting. Okay, so we will now move on to one of the biggest things we were tasked with doing, which is policy number 15, the California statewide recyclable list. We've had many discussions about this, a lot of public input, and at our last meeting of May 17th, we approved it on the first reading. So we can, at this point, I will just say, unless anybody's got any changes or concerns, we need to just go ahead and vote and get this done. There was a lot of work put into it, and I really want to thank Commissioner Donlevy and Commissioner Davis for finalizing this, even though I know Commissioner Lapis worked on it originally as well. So,
Heidi, sorry, there's still a link on, it's on page 3 at the bottom. It was to show the spreadsheet, and it's got the link doesn't go to the spreadsheet. We were going to do something to fix that, but I'm not seeing it. So.
Yeah, I know Commissioner Dell sent it to us. So Ted, we can go back and grab that and stick it in there. Somehow it didn't get in or connect, but we'll fix the link. Anything else?
No.
Okay. So second reading. Oh, Commissioner Dell, did you want to say something?
I'm ready to motion to approve.
Yeah, I was going to take a vote. Is everybody good with this? This is the final vote. This is going to go into the report. Thumbs up? Okay. Is there anybody who opposes it or has any further changes? This is a very big deal. What is recyclable? Probably will make national news. Okay. Very good. Yeah.
Commissioner Sanborn, with your comment there, I agree. I mean, this is national. This is potentially international impact. So I don't know if we can do a press release or get the word out, but hopefully with our actions here today and hopefully some legislation that's moving through the Senate, it'll have worldwide impact where the recyclable label will come off items that aren't getting recycled and will help recycling programs throughout the world reduce contamination from people seeing a recycling symbol that is misleading and they think they should throw it into a bin hoping that material is recycled, but unfortunately it ends up getting landfilled or causing damage to machinery.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that we should discuss at the end of the meeting what we do if we want to promote anything special, if we want to wait to the full report. But this is a very big deal. So thank you very much.
And just one quick last thing. So I've done a lot of show and tells over the last 25 commission meetings, endless committee meetings. This one actually came up this weekend, painting these plastic single-use things that came in a kit I got. And it actually says full on here, PP5, recyclable, a big word that says recyclable. And it's covered in dried paint. And so don't worry, CR&R, I'm not going to put it in my bin today. But this is how badly we need this policy recommendation, because this is intended to have dried paint on it. So of course it's not recyclable. So yeah, it's the last show and tell of the year. And by the way, Sherman-Williams Snowbound, it's a good paint. It works.
Well, thank you again. I think this is, we've got to get the public to get truth in their labeling so they can help us sort. And this has been a big deal. So we'll go ahead. That is approved. Second reading. It's going in the second report unless somebody pulls it up at the next meeting, which I sure hope we don't, because this is hopefully done. Okay. Thank you, commissioners. That was awesome. The other thing that I think we had for a previous discussion was the labeling item. And Commissioner Dell, I emailed you right before the meeting because Commissioner Ward and I could not find the documentation that we actually did do a second vote. So I just want to make sure all I's are dotted, T's are crossed, that we have completed the vote on that because it should have been in the notes for some reason and it wasn't, and I'm pretty careful about that. So Commissioner Ward, can you pull that one up, please? The labeling. And I believe, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time keeping this all track today. I've been up since 5:30 trying to do it. But I believe, was this in the first report, Commissioner Dell? I don't think it was.
No, it didn't make it into the preliminary report because we were still talking about it. And then, yes, it came up multiple times in the commission, and Commissioner Sky presented it, and we made last week's, and we all stacked hands and approved it. If it didn't have an official second approval, if that's what we're doing now, then maybe it needs that today, but we definitely all stacked hands. February seems like a long time ago, right? Hard to remember.
Well, we went through the notes and we just didn't see where it got a second reading. And Commissioner Ward, if you go to the top, you and I corrected this. We did say what actually had happened that we could trace, which was, February 2nd. It went before the full commission. The first reading was adopted May 5th. The second would be today.
I'll make a motion to approve it on second reading today.
Thank you. And we really, I mean, if somebody wants to second, that's fine, but I'll second it or whatever. All thumbs up? Everybody okay with this?
Yeah, I do have to mention though that at this point we've got the reusable definition here referred to in statute, and we have another policy proposal we'll be discussing later in which we suggest that definition be revisited. So I just thought I would highlight that potential issue. And trying to think about where this falls in the report, I'd also like input from Commissioner Dell as to whether you would like this incorporated into the labeling section or into the waste prevention section.
This was
specifically on the refillables. I think we wanted to include everything here that reusables. Yeah, we want to include everything here that might potentially have a label, but then the actual policy recommendation development that you were coming up with should sit somewhere else, not in this.
So if there's a conflict between definitions, that's a problem, obviously.
Well, it is a bit of a thing, and I think what I would recommend is that we put it in the waste prevention section, but that in this area just below reusable, we add a link to that as well to indicate that there are different issues raised with that term.
Sure, that's fine. When this was written, the other this was leading and that one was lagging, so there was nothing to add to it at the time.
Well, then that begs the question: if we in a few minutes adopt another policy that has a different definition, we still have time. I mean, wouldn't we want this to have the same definition?
It does. I mean, my big concern, I don't want to distract from the discussion of this proposal, which I think is ready to go. And the other stuff we can add on later and how we address it. So I'll second the motion that we approve this policy and perhaps add a link related to the reuse.
Just to clarify, the reason that we were referring to both is that the reusable definition in regs is what's existing today, and the policy is calling, and I think appropriately so, we'll have a discussion about it, to change that definition. But until it actually changes, we can't move away from it. So we're basically saying, here's what's currently defined as reusable, here's what we'd like to do, and we're linking to that recommendation. Does that make sense?
Thank you. That makes perfect sense.
Exactly.
Okay. We'll just highlight this.
One more thing that jumps out at me is that there actually aren't requirements for the use of the word reusable. Because it's not a label you have to use. There are requirements for recyclable and compostable. For reusable, what's referenced is that for takeout food packaging in safe facilities, they have to be recyclable, compostable, or reusable. They don't have to be labeled anything. So for instance, you know, a ceramic plate doesn't have to be labeled reusable in order to be reusable. So I think we need to change that. The middle sentence there, certain products have legal requirements for the use of the word reusable in California. I'm not sure that's accurate.
Okay. So,
We can maybe just delete that. Perfect.
Yeah, that's good.
okay. So there's one minor deletion, but 99.9% of this has already been adopted. And we're going to do a final meeting. We could just call this the second reading because I think it really is. That was just a pretty minor change. So is everybody okay approving this with that minor edit and the link to the reuse labeling policy? Everybody good? Okay. Anybody opposed? Have any changes? All right, great. So we've got another one done. Labeling. Thank you again, Commissioner Dell, for all your hard work on that. All right, so the
It
next
was a
one.
team effort.
Yeah, I think everything on this commission is pretty much a team effort, but somebody has to lead, so that's always appreciated. Second reading is the rest of these. So, or first, and that we'll do the second readings next, the ones that have already been started. And the one that I have here was 12.01. Commissioner Ward, is this the reusable food service packaging? I believe this is one that we were going to adopt today, right? We've already had a first reading. And this is about the criteria for reusable service food packaging, which we were just discussing. We heard it May 5th. And it's pretty short. So do any commissioners have any comments or questions about this policy? Because this would be the second reading to go into the report and be numbered.
Just a
And
quick
again-
comment that Ted and I had a long conversation about this, and I really appreciate his edits based on our conversation. I think the key line in this is, if you scroll up a little bit, it's the line about reuse as a process at the top of the next page. I think that's the key thing, that reuse means something getting reused as opposed to something being durable. So thank you, Ted.
Okay, so you're comfortable, this is the final, because I think we had just a couple of suggestions and you guys went back and made some changes, so this will be the second and final reading. Commissioner Ward, did you want to say anything about this?
That is essentially, I appreciate Commissioner Lapis's focus, because that is exactly the thing. Our concern is we don't want to have something that just because it potentially could be reused, it somehow gets onto the list as reusable and therefore can be purchased en masse. So that's a concern. So that's what we're trying to highlight. But we acknowledge that the existing regulations are already in place, and so this is a suggested change as opposed to a interpretation of existing regs.
Okay. Commissioners ready to vote? Thumbs up. This would be
There
a
was a
second
comment
reading.
from Commissioner Davis.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Davis, go ahead.
Yeah, Ted, at the last meeting, I suggested maybe one of the criteria would be a design for reuse. That something is actually designed, manufactured, intended to be reused. And as I was reading through it, I mean, it kind of refers to that obliquely, but could we have something that specifically calls it out?
Where are you talking about?
Well, that's the problem. I don't know where.
Okay.
I mean, look at number 2, right? 4 factors, but none of the 4 are actually a container that's designed to hold leftover food. That's designed for that purpose. So something that's designed, manufactured, intended for reuse would be able to be called reusable.
I would agree with that, because otherwise they're going to say, oh, it can be reused for this and that. And,
Yeah, I think that's what struck me last time. The concern is, a plastic yogurt container can be reused, but it wasn't designed to be a food container. It was designed to hold yogurt. It wasn't designed to be a reusable container. It's a secondary benefit or impact. But yeah, okay, I'm better now. I'm good. Thank you.
The item is clearly designed to be reused for its initial intended function multiple times. So that means 2 or more, multiple.
But
Should we
Yeah.
say 2 or more?
I think it's a good addition, but I'll just flag that every time anybody has falsely claimed that their product is reusable, they have said that it's designed to be reused, whether it's, I mean, this has come up in multiple.
Well, I guess my focus is that there are items that are designed solely to be reused. That's the intent of the item. That's what I was looking for. Not a secondary aspect. But
Okay, and I'm going to do a time check. We have 1 hour. Commissioner Schneider?
I was on an event yesterday with a number of reuse people. I think the language in the first bullet point captures it. The discussion was, were there a certain number of times something needs to be reused to truly be called reuse? And Ted, this was Miriam from Upstream talking about this. But I think the first bullet point captures the intent. It's going to be argued a lot.
Rumbled. Format later.
Okay, I'm going to suggest that we just added pretty important language and that this should be first reading. And we can just approve it quickly at the next meeting. Is that okay?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, so all those who approve first reading on this edited version of the reusable food packaging policy, thumbs up. Is there anybody who's opposed or wants to change? Okay, so I've got a public comment, I think, Ben?
Yes, it's from Shirley Frericks, and it says, when does reused get to recycled? Is a product reusable and recyclable? That's the end of the comment.
And did you want to address that at all? Commissioner Ward, do you think it's just in the policy and you... He's on mute.
It is in the policy. It's in the bullets. I got to pull it back up. But essentially,
okay.
that's it.
Let's have them read it, yeah. Okay, thank you so much. So that's first reading.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we'll pull this up for the next meeting as a second reading, and then that'll go into the report. Okay, so 1 hour, we got to move quickly to make sure we get all these done. The next one that's up for second reading was titled Sustainable Circular Economics, Correcting Market Imbalances from Counterproductive Incentives. This was done by Commissioner Sky and Ward. So we can pull that up. If anybody has any suggested changes to this, now is the time to do it. Otherwise, entertain a motion to approve on second reading. And this is a 7-page policy. This is really a lot of work. So thank you again to those who worked on it.
I'll move to approve, and I really appreciate Commissioner Sky's work on it.
Thank you. I'll second.
Okay. All those commissioners voting aye, thumbs up. And we're missing a few video, so I'm just assuming that they're on the phone. And is there anybody who's opposed to this or has any changes to this policy? If this is approved, it's on second reading, it will go into the report July 1st. Seeing none, it's approved, and that will be in the second report. Congratulations, thank you so much. All right, now, market development. The next one we have is producer, this is 2103, Ted. This is the producer responsibility for market development. Was this one already approved? It seems to me, no, I think this was the second reading. It doesn't say on this one in front of me, like the other ones did.
It's a second reading. We were going to change certain paragraphs to it, just clean up some of the language, Heidi, from last one.
Yep. Do you want to go through it at all, or any changes that you had?
I think it was important that we identified who this covered. I think that was the last of the conversation we had. So we did make some minor changes to it, but I think it's important to note that we did, under the proposals, define who was covered. So under, yeah, right there. So producers of covered products means producers with products that can be collected for recycling but cannot be processed due to low scrap or market value. Processors include donation and buyback centers. And I think that was kind of the crux of bringing this back, and what we needed to change was, who does this apply to?
I see.
Yeah, that one sentence jumped out at me just because I wasn't totally clear what that meant.
Yeah, it's new because.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, is it corrected enough, Commissioner Lapis, that you feel comfortable with it?
No, it was actually when I was reading through this version, it jumped out at me. Just I'm not totally clear what the point that's being made.
That's not good.
I believe at the last meeting, we talked about who is going to have to pay into this, and it really didn't define when a producer was or had a covered product, and that's really what we meant to do with that sentence, with those two sentences.
There was a comment on the first reading, or maybe it was at the Market Development Committee. I don't recall that, but I know Susan Collins brought up specifically buyback operations. So I think that was the intention to include it here. I think the phrase donation would refer, for example, to a thrift store that ends up with a pile of textiles that can't be sold, but could be recycled under a producer support program. So that's my recollection of how we got to that language.
Is that clear enough, Commissioner Lapis? Or do we still need more?
Well, I mean, I guess, is it clear to everybody else? If it is, then that's fine. I don't necessarily disagree. I just was a little bit confused, but if everybody else gets it, then we can move on.
I took it as essentially everything that was being wish cycled, placed in the recycling bin, and that includes textiles, but doesn't have a market.
Yeah. And if you look at the illustration, I'm not sure the illustration was updated. No, it is. Okay. We took out Commissioner Ward's concerns about looking like a strike through, so we took the gray background off on those arrows, but that's where the drop off, buyback, donate lands.
Commissioner
Similar
Ward,
to MERPs. You know, it's just outside the MERP structures.
did you have anything to say, Commissioner Ward?
No, I think that's a fine change. I just didn't want it to look like a no symbol.
Right.
And Commissioner Davis, I mean, I had made a comment on that. Commissioner Toyota couldn't change it because we tried. But if you could want to truly, do a circular, model, it's almost you would put you have the consumer, and then the consumer uses the recycling bin or a drop-off, buyback, donate, right? And if you move that up there, right, that's what people do. They have the option of doing either, right? I mean, those that do want to drop off, they do. And those that don't use the convenience of the recycling bin. And then the hauler, here you could actually change that to transporter, because it's either has to be transported to a MRF or transported to a buyback center, right? So someone either takes it into their cart, a vehicle comes and picks it up, takes it to a MRF, or someone takes it back to a buyback center. So if you did that, I don't know if that would just clarify for folks, because you can say, I'm the consumer, I have a decision to make. Recycling bin, or do I drive it somewhere? Then the transporter is either the person driving to the buyback center or a truck coming and picking it up. And then they take it to a buyback center or to a MRF. And that MRF, I like the symbol, but it's really the processor there. The processor can be the MRF or a buyback center that's selecting, choosing, in both systems, they have to do some selection of what materials they bring. And that kind of eliminated the null sign. But anyway,
Yeah.
I don't know if it gets too complicated if you do it that way, but it actually really shows in the whole flow.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, a diagram is only a diagram. You know,
Yeah.
I think the language is more important. And
Are we okay
I
then?
think it works the way it is. I kind of follow what you were saying, but I think it would really complicate the diagram.
Okay, well, again, we're giving advice and people are gonna mull this over and probably do their own diagrams. Unless we want to say, diagram could be changed to do this and that. I think it sounds like this is ready to go for second reading. Commissioner Segura, you believe that we're ready? Yeah? Okay. So, do we have a motion and a second?
Motion to move forward with the proposal?
Second.
Great. All those in favor, thumbs up. And looks like we got a unanimous thumbs up unless there's anybody on the phone that wishes to comment and have a concern. This is second reading and done. Producer responsibility for market development. And I want to say thank you because this was a really creative way to thread the needle and a lot of good thought went into this. So thanks to everybody who worked on it.
And Commissioner Sanborn, could I throw something in? I know that you mentioned last time, which I think it's good. It sounds like it sounded like an extremely novel idea, but I do believe that, you know, that demand has been around for a long time, and creating a working, functioning demand for materials really creates, and it's a critical part of creating the whole circular economy. So anyway, I just wanted to add to your comment. I think it does seem novel at first. Oh my God. But actually, the creation of the demand in the model creates the circularity of the model, right? So I think it's important.
I totally agree. That's why I think market development and that state agency by recycle campaign and the state voting with their dollars. Unfortunately, that bill is now a 2-year bill, but I totally agree, and I'm hopeful this will be helpful. So thanks again for all that work. So we'll move on to another policy that is up for second reading. And that is the hospitality textile recycling. This came up May 19th, and so today would be the second reading. This was submitted by Commissioner Davis and didn't have any changes. So is there anyone who would have any concerns about this or want to change it in any way, or are we good to approve this one on second reading and get it in the report? Motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve it.
Oh, I heard a motion and
second
a second. Or two motions, same thing. All commissioners vote aye, thumbs up. We're all good? Excellent. Okay, we've done it again. Thank you, Commissioner Davis, for that. So second reading, and that is approved to go into the report. The next one, this one, let's see, reuse and repair businesses. This is second review of commission. Okay. So this one was done by Commissioner Ward and Davis. This is support and expand reuse and repair businesses. Oh, I'm sorry. This is the first reading. Commissioner Ward, I think the next one for second reading is the personal care fiber derived products that Commissioner Medrano did, correct? I think that's the last one.
What do you want me to pull up?
Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, why don't we go ahead and pull that up? Wasn't that because we heard it at the commission on the 19th? Right, so this is the second reading, Commissioner Medrano?
We heard it at, the subcommittee and the 19th.
Yep. Okay, so solicit more commissioner feedback. Oh, that's right. We had lost a lot of commissioners at the end of the last meeting. And so we weren't comfortable doing this without all of you. And we had the time. And Commissioner Medrano made some edits this morning because it was hard to read. For some reason, the tables were running off the page. And so we corrected that this morning. But this was heard multiple times. This is about personal care fiber-derived products and trying to make sure we're sourcing from recycled content, hopefully more, by not cutting down the boreal forest for toilet paper. And this was an NRDC proposal. There's actually a bill in play. So Commissioner Medrano, did you want to say anything to this?
Yes, the 15 billion pounds of this type of paper or pulp is being used at the moment. So as we all know, virgin fiber is very, very destructive and there is availability of recycled content fiber out there. So there is the proposal here at hand. Hopefully you commissioners had a chance to see. That seems to still be the old one from
I'm
not
seeing
the
that.
one I emailed this morning, because that is still
Still the old one, okay.
Yeah, it's still got the formatting issues. I'll just say that
Oh,
the,
They're both in
Oh,
there.
there we go. That's the one.
Yeah.
should we remove the other one out of there so nobody's looking at that one, yeah. Okay, so this is the proposal.
I have
so-
I have a question.
Yep,
Commissioner Medrano, as I was reading this version, I got confused. If you look at the bottom of page 6, is this the proposal? It's a phased-in approach?
yes.
Okay, because then the language on the proposal at the end of page 7, or page 8, I'm sorry, the proposal on page 8 still refers to 100%. So it needs to be reconciled to the other language.
We could change that. Plus, I did catch a typo there after I sent the proposal with the extra S, right, the I mean, so.
Yeah. Yeah, so that number 1 should be consistent with the proposal up there on page 6.
Mhm.
And with that, I'd be glad to make a motion.
okay. So everybody can read it and understand it, but this would hopefully drive markets for recycled content paper since we're not cutting down. This is that whole extraction thing. And I would say this meets our greenhouse gas goals because forests sequester a lot of carbon. So cutting down mature forests is not helping us.
So is the proposal for 90% or 100%?
90%.
It's 90%, but a phase-in to 90%.
You could even just say to require progressively increasing post-consumer recycled content.
Yeah.
I'd like to also remind the group that paper products are the top 5 products found in our waste for the statewide waste characterization study as well. So this will
I'm
help
just going to
drive
say
market.
that was a big change to me. And I'm a little nervous about doing this on second reading. If everybody's okay with it, just to make sure we followed our process, we can make this first reading with all these edits and changes just to make sure we're all following our process, if that's okay.
The 90% was just something that was not added to the, or the 100% was not taken out from the last version. So
Yeah, percentages are pretty important.
And Heidi, I mean, this is just a crazy question, but is there some tissue products that would need to be not made from the recycling content because of health reasons? I just don't know for allergenic type.
I did not hear that, and there are several products in the market now that are 100%.
Yeah, I've never heard that. I mean, I guess it could be true, but we haven't heard from anybody about that. And we did reach out, didn't we, to the, did we get to the Forest and Paper Products Association, Manuel?
Yes,
No.
also the history as well
Yeah.
on the recycling market.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I would suggest this is first reading because we just made a pretty big change and this was a lot of last minute changes on this one that were kind of just formatting, but if we're okay, let's approve this if everybody's ready to today at first reading, and we'll do second reading with the rest of them next meeting.
Also move.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, great. So all those thumbs up? I think we're good. And anybody that does not agree, any concerns, then this will be on the next agenda. Thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Medrano. And thanks to our friends at NRDC for bringing this to our attention. So this was first reading. Okay. Now, the next ones that I have, this one, these are first reading now. So one of them we've talked about multiple times, and Commissioner Lapis, I owe an apology because we had started this and we were going to bring it up, and then it kept getting pushed, and then there was a bill. But I would like to get it in this report, and that is on the refillables, because you had done so much work and put it all together. So we put it back into the folder just to make sure everybody's okay with this. But this is adding returnable bottles into the California bottle bill and not crushing them, requiring them to be canceled. This was, a lot of thought was put into this, and I feel bad that it didn't get up on an earlier agenda. We were supposed to hear it on the 21st of April, and then as Commissioner Ward and I were going through the agendas, we realized it didn't get back to us. So we wanted to do that. There is a ComLogger bill on this that is moving as far as I know. And we talked about this multiple times about the need to, the way the bottle bill is written, they had to cancel these glass bottles by crushing them. And the only way to go back to refillables and allow that to happen is to change that in the law. And that's what the ComLogger bill is. And we had approved the legislative table of bills with this in it. So this should not be any surprise or anything. But I just thought it'd be good to get the policy into the report. So are there any other comments on this or questions or concerns? If not, is there a motion to adopt this on first reading?
I'll move to approve.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor? Thumbs up. Is there anybody who is not in favor of this or wishes to speak to the refillables? I don't see any. Okay, great. So this was adopted first reading today, and we'll do second reading on the 16th. All right. And then I have one more. Commissioner Ward, let me know if I'm missing any, but this is the support and expand of reuse and repair businesses. So this would be first reading, but the second review.
Second review.
We looked at it before, but I don't believe we adopted it, did we? Look at my notes. Support repair.
Let me report what happened.
Davis and Ward will work together to reach out to stakeholders and return with an updated policy proposal at the next meeting. So this will be first reading.
Okay. So the Waste Prevention Group of CRRA did actually discuss this, and I thank my colleague Kira Seymour for presenting it to that group. And I don't believe there were any specific comments. In general, what this does is it opens the door to have reuse and repair businesses that essentially have significant disposal expenses to start engaging on the RDRS system and thereby become eligible for some support in terms of their disposal. Essentially, so it's self-selecting. It is not adding any additional burden on those businesses unless they are already experiencing a very large disposal bill, and that would motivate them to participate. And so essentially it's starting to engage with the businesses that are doing this work, and it's the first steps of the process. In general, as you all are aware, our field has not done a great job in terms of actually supporting reuse and repair businesses. We don't even have good mechanisms for discussing with those industry groups what we might be able to do to improve the situation. So this is the first step in doing so, and my recommendation. So the board of it is, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Davis, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I was actually, I attended the meeting, and there really wasn't much specific discussion, and I think if this is going to be, I suggest we treat this as, I'd be reluctant to go forward with it until maybe Commissioner Ward and Shauna McCracken could discuss what was presented at the committee. I avoided participating in the discussion because I thought it was, I was concerned we had another person presenting it, and I was concerned about the, you know, the Bagley-Keene advice. So, but they may have been under the impression that this was not going forward immediately. So, and that, I guess I wouldn't want to suggest that they were lacking ideas, but the one thing that I'm still confused about, Commissioner Ward, is the RDRS role. And
Yes.
I'm not sure how, you know, who reports, you know, as I think I mentioned last time, most, you know, how do you get weights from someone who's subscribing to a 3-yard bin collection service, and their bin is full maybe once a month, and the other times it's half full or a quarter full. You know, what's the weight? And so that whole RDRS part of it is confusing. The technical council didn't discuss that at all. But I think the idea of supporting disposal costs for these businesses, you know, that's good. But I'm confused myself about the RDRS part.
So
Okay.
I guess, well, we have two choices. We either hold this and it somehow gets, you know, addressed before the next meeting, and then we have to schedule a second meeting to do a second reading, maybe the day after or the Friday after, which is what we did before, or we just don't put this in the report. But supporting repair businesses, I think we've all agreed is kind of important.
Yeah, somebody
is the RDRS to try to get quantities of materials that are
essentially, yeah, my thought on that was that, so as we're rolling out food rescue programs, for example, part of what we're doing is we're identifying tier 1 and tier 2 food generators and trying to identify folks that might be able to redistribute those foods. And those are all becoming part of the RDRS system. This is the first time where we're actually quantifying an engagement in a waste prevention activity. So this is, at this point in time, the primary tool by which we have to do so. And at this point in time, the reuse and repair businesses don't have any reason to engage with us. And so if we created a circumstance in which they could help document the waste prevention activities that they're engaged in, and by doing so might be able to get in line for an economic benefit because of the waste prevention activities they're doing, then that seemed to me a avenue in which we might be able to pursue a broad-based support for reuse and repair industries. And that was my objective, is to not narrowly try to figure out how to support one sector of reuse and repair, but how to cast the net broadly and to start some kind of constructive engagement. I admit that I don't know as much as I would like to about waste prevention and all its different avenues, and I'm open to taking more time to develop a more thoughtful proposal, and yet I also want to see waste prevention as a top priority. So I admit I'm a little bit conflicted.
I saw hands waving by Vice Chair Valle. Did you wish to say anything, Commissioner Valle?
Yeah, you know, I'm interested in the conversation for Ted. Are we thinking about not just reuse, but when you talk about reuse, I think about thrift stores and how many people depend on thrift stores. A lot of us take used clothing, used books, appliances, other things that have some life in them, but we're donating them to other organizations. Are those included within the umbrella you're talking about?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's a worthwhile conversation because a lot of people that come into the recycling center see it as an opportunity to bring, as we all know, clothing, books, electronics, lots of other stuff that they don't want anymore, but still has use in them. And there's a whole set of micro businesses that are creating jobs by salvaging those materials. So I think it's something that we just need to sort of more clearly define, because in the mind of the public, if I'm driving a 1974 Volkswagen Beetle, I need to find a repair shop that can still maintain that vehicle for me. There aren't too many repair shops. And so there's a lot of niche repair people that will do that, that again, have very specific expertise that are hard to find.
Right. And those honestly are the kind of folks that would not really find a way in this system as it's proposed, because they'd be relatively small waste impact, they wouldn't have much motivation, and there wouldn't be a lot of engagement, because I didn't want to create an administrative burden on existing businesses that wouldn't benefit.
And that I guess is my concern is as much as I want data, I don't want to overburden groups that are running on volunteers or have, don't have funding enough to stay operational as it is.
I agree. But at the same time, if these discard operations, if these reuse and repair folks are handling significant quantities of material, we need to find a way to start the conversation and to begin the engagement. And at this point, we don't have one.
Can that be I don't know. I almost wonder.
If you'd like, if I'm hearing from the group there isn't consensus to move forward with this, we can add introductory paragraphs that will continue to work on this. But it is ironic that we're saying it's a priority and yet we don't really have policies. So we'll have to thread that needle.
I agree. I almost wonder if we should do a, like invite some of the Goodwill and some of these folks to like a committee meeting to really talk to them about what they could do.
I can share my experience, which is I've talked to a variety of different entities on one or more of these categories, but they don't talk to the others. There is no one that speaks as a whole for waste prevention because there is such diversity in the industry associated with that phrase.
Commissioner Schneider? Commissioner Schneider, did you want to say something? We can't hear you. Huh. Sorry, I think you're on mute because we can't hear you. Okay, well, that's too bad because I'd like to hear from her. She has something on this. Is there a motion? Did someone want to move this or do we want to hold it? Where's the consensus on this one? I think we all agree it's a priority to deal with this.
Yeah, I guess, back to my initial statement about the RDRS, I'm just not sure that's the system.
Yeah.
And I do, I think the CRA Reuse Council is a good place to kind of have this dialogue, because a number of these, the 10 categories you've listed, a number of them are active on that group, or people have contacts with others. So if we're trying to estimate the volume of that material, I did some work with Mary Ellen Etienne a while back, just trying to even define this, and it's really difficult,
All the more reason.
I think we're jumping to a solution that I'm not sure really fits the problem. I agree there's a problem.
I agree with Commissioner Ward that we're looking for an entry portal to have the conversation, and we're not trying to solve the problem. We're trying to create an opportunity for people to come on the record and start talking about this cycle of business. I think given what's currently happening with COVID, so many people are unemployed, depending on second incomes, creating incomes, micro businesses wanting to start. We have people now, for example, that can cook meals legally out of their homes and distribute them like a restaurant. That was an ordinance that we created in Alameda County because there are so many chefs and cooks that are out of work. Those are micro businesses that are flourishing throughout the county. That's one example But the other is, I agree with Ted, this is simply an entry portal. And if he wants to open that door, I support that.
I think if we said something that, you know, that it's similar to RDRS, you know, who's collecting the data? Is it CalRecycle? We expect to begin to collect this voluntary data. You know, I'd be more comfortable with that.
I think that there's two parts to this proposal, and I'd just like to see them reversed. So the proposal is to register or begin to, or have them begin to put information to RDRS, and that way they may become eligible for discard management and expenses. Is there some way to flip that so that we address how are we going to help them with their discard expenses, and then once that's in place, to have them begin to report, and that way we wouldn't have to worry about them or worry about the effort and time and cost of reporting. It would already be established, but that they would get something to help them with that.
I appreciate the input, and my first impression is my own experience here, which is if you don't actually start to engage with them, you don't even know they exist. And so there needs to be some mechanism in which we meet each other. And I can't say as a category, for example, if you're a reuse and repair business, we're going to cover your trash bill. I can't do that. One, I don't even know what categories of business they are. And then plus it's a complicated thing with respect to our hauling contract and who pays for that. And there's a number of steps to develop there. But at this point, the fundamental thing is we don't even know who they all are.
Can I make a proposal? I think what I'm hearing is we all totally value the priority of reuse and repair businesses, and we want to engage with them. The question is how. I'm not sure RDRS is the right way, and I think that's what other people have said. So maybe what we do is we put this in abeyance for this report. We put language in the report that we are eager to begin real outreach to these groups and start engaging them. I think we've kind of already, you know, as I said earlier to our Director Wagner, it was such a priority for us that we got a bunch of people to sign on to a letter saying that we need another $25 million to go into the reuse grants, which could help businesses like this. That's also another way to get data, because when there's money for them and they apply, then we start learning about them and what do they need and who are they. But maybe, does that sound reasonable that we put something in the report that discusses this? I'm seeing some head nods.
I'm totally fine with adding text rather than this policy, because I do think that it needs a little bit more incubation. But we also want to emphasize in the report, we all acknowledge waste prevention is the top priority, but sadly, we're discard professionals who work in other sectors.
And Commissioner Ward, I think that a great idea would be to really highlight the issue, right, and have people come talk to the commission to really hear firsthand what are their issues, where can we help, what would really help them, right? I think I would love to hear those folks presenting to really understand where we can help.
Great. Well, with that, we have, thank you again for all your work on this, Commissioner Ward, and keeping the priority on reuse and repair. We've got one more policy. We're at 11:35, and this is carbon farming, which is also Commissioner Ward's. He's just very prolific. We're lucky to have him. And, I'm especially lucky. So carbon farming analysis and promotion, and this one was second hearing.
Yeah, and I brought this to the Organics Committee, and I very much appreciate their input. And so the additions from that meeting or prelude to that are in green. So this is the second hearing, hopefully looking for approval here. But essentially, it is encouraging the use of finished compost products to help sequester carbon. And the proposal to assess the potential for the strategic application of compost and mulch materials to sequester carbon. I added along the wildland-urban boundaries as recommended by Commissioner Schneider. And then we added two final bullets CalRecycle should actively participate in further development of California 2030 Natural and Working Lands Climate Change Implementation Plan, and the governor and legislature should consider additional funding to support these.
Great. Well, I should say this is the first reading. It's the second hearing, but we've made
Right, okay.
changes. So it's the first reading of this. Assuming we accept this green language, this then would go into the final report as a proposal recommendation. Any comments on this?
I'll move to approve under first reading.
Okay, second.
I'll second.
Great. All those in favor, thumbs up. Is there anybody who's opposed or has a concern? Okay, well done. So this will be second reading on the 16th. And with that, I'm looking at the small scale. I'll just review that at the last meeting. We did discuss the small scale composting facility proposal that was sort of the organics committee, and I think you've decided not to bring that back, correct?
Yes, but I also have to add that there is concern expressed from the public that deferring that essentially locks local governments into making commitments that some of them are very uncomfortable with. And so they're chagrined that this policy couldn't move forward, but they agree that we should learn more from other states that are doing similar things so that we can figure out how to do it well here.
Okay. And it looks like we have one public or two public comments maybe, one on reuse and repair. You can hear those, Ben?
Yes, just the one on reuse and repair. Sorry about that. It is from Doug Cobold. It's with the California Product Stewardship Council. It says there are several materials that are required to be reported under AB 901 and the RDRS system, such as backhauling of materials to distribution centers. That is not always weighed, but rather estimated. Further, the thrift stores are spending thousands to tens of thousands in disposal costs each month. So offsetting those costs would help to encourage them to participate in the reporting structure, regardless of which reporting mechanism is ultimately used. CPSC highly encourages the Commission to adopt this recommendation so that the work can begin on it.
Okay, I think that decision was just made. So, all right, so we've got language to write, it looks like, for the report on that. Are there any policies that you feel that we have missed hearing today? Is there anything that Commissioner Ward and I, we tried to reach out to you if we had a question. We went through all the meeting minutes, but I think that was it. So if that's the case, then
the redefined reuse label still needs to come forward. We skipped over that one.
Okay, let's pull that up.
Okay.
So this will be the last one to hear today. And then we can move on to legislation, future meeting agendas, and meeting summary and closing. And I'm very sorry we are not getting a break.
Okay, we are.
This is the one we just did. We already did.
Reusable food. We did do that one. Sorry. Okay. Just going through the list, trying to be sure.
No,
Hospitality and textile recycling.
We did that.
Okay. I think we've been through them all. Okay.
Excellent. Okay. Well, then let's go ahead. Well done, Commissioners. So that's agenda item 6. And I don't know why we missed this on the agenda proofing, but it was misnumbered. So really agenda item 7 was the update and review of legislation. Were you able, Commissioner Ward, to pull up that spreadsheet? I know Jordan Wells on my team, she had updated it yesterday. As we discussed, the battery bill did not make it, and that was disappointing. That actually would have to be reintroduced. All the other bills, I think, are still moving. The one that is, I know 343, the Chasing Arrows bill, got out yesterday. I think there was only 5 no votes off the floor, Commissioner Lapis, something like that. So that is moving along very well. A lot of the recommendations.
I'm not finding the legislative table. Can you direct me to that? There you go. Okay.
Oh, there it is. Yep, so AGR 4 is still moving. I think that one's going to be heard, yeah, on 6/14 in Senate Environmental Quality. So that gets to the urgency of the export issue, even though we can't stop it in the state. So I think Commissioner Dell asked a lot of good questions today about that. State procurement has been held on state agency buy recycle campaign is a 2-year bill, unfortunately. So the Lorena Gonzalez bill on reclassifying exports, so it's not considered recycling. That is still moving and awaiting referral. The refillable glass, that is still moving. Banning PFAS in the foodware, that is still moving. Senate and EQ now, so that's in the second house. Organics, that's awaiting referrals, that's in the second house. So really the big disappointments were right to repair for medical devices and the EPR for batteries and the state agency buy recycle not making it out this year. I think are the big ones to highlight. Is there somebody that wanted to mention anything else? Okay, and then the big thing was the budget revision, and that has to pass by the 15th of June. It's gone through several hearings, so if anybody's interested in what Director Wagner talked about today, I did put that in the folder, the budget proposal, the summary, as soon as we got it, so you can all see it there on the Commission Google Docs. Commissioner Sky, did you want to speak to this?
To the budget. So I believe it was either last meeting or the prior one we empowered the chair and vice chair to speak on behalf of bills that were the green highlighted. Will you also be empowered to talk about the budget priorities that are aligned with these same priorities?
I would be fine with that if you guys are okay with that. I think we're going to get into a lot of press stuff right now, especially if the budget is adopted with the circular economy features in it and all that money coming to the programs that we've all asked it come to. So if you're okay with that, I'm sure the vice chair and I would be happy to do that. He's given a thumbs up, so he's had a busy day today. Okay, is there anybody who would not support giving the chair and vice chair the ability to talk to the media on behalf of the commission regarding the budget as it aligns to what we do, not other things?
The only thing I want to add is I hope that you'd be able to also mention the funding for organics infrastructure, which was part of several of the recommendations, is also a major budget component.
Ah, okay. I'm sure Commissioner Valle is more aware of that one than I am. I mean, I am aware of it. I just haven't focused on it. So yeah, and I'll certainly.
The vast majority of the money, I think, is for organics management.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
And based on Director Wagner's comments today, it sounded like there's ongoing discussions and questions about the timing of when different proposals will move forward. So I think it's very timely for you both to engage on those topics.
Yeah, and actually, we could probably talk, he and I, about how to really get it out there. And we could talk about it as a group after our meeting on the 16th, how you'd like us to get out there on this and maybe start, soliciting some of the reporters to cover this and the final report, because you've all put in so much work and there's so much good here. It would be great to get a lot of attention on. I think California Secretary Blumenfeld did suggest that to us, that use our voices. And that's all of you as well. So Commissioner Dunleavy?
Yes, thank you. And any discussions with the budget, talk about the letter that the commission sent, specifically asking for funding for redemption centers in the underserved areas, typically the higher cost areas. There was also a letter signed by 32 Northern California recycling centers also asking for support to help open up redemption centers. There is money in the Beverage Container Fund. It just takes authorization from the legislature and the governor to release those funds. So there's money available. The commission's asked for it. The industry has asked for it. CalRecycle, the legislature, and the governor, they just need to do something sooner than later because legislation will take a year to 2 years to do anything. But something in the budget could do something within the next couple months.
That is a true story. So, okay, we are now at 13 minutes to 12. Is there anything else you'd like to discuss under the budget or legislation? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move to agenda item, which should be 8, which is agenda items for future meetings. Basically, all I had planned for the next agenda, if that's okay with you, is to just approve all the policies, finish them, and then finish the report after the policies. And the report, we really need to finish at this next meeting. Otherwise, we should schedule a second meeting that we don't hold if unneeded, but you know, it's going to take all of us to get through this report on the 16th to be very efficient and bring proposed language changes, or send them to Commissioner Ward and I like by Friday, so we get it in there, and then we can send it out to everybody as a final. That will help us get through the next meeting a lot faster and make sure, because if we don't schedule another meeting, we'd literally 7, 8, 9, 10, we'd have to schedule it like on the 28th or the 30th, which would barely be able to get submitted on time if we don't get through the next meeting. Do you want to make the next meeting 4 hours just in case? Or do you want to leave it at 3 and hope we get the, I mean, none of us want to do any more meetings. I know. Commissioner Sky? Or,
I think there were commissioners.
yeah, sorry. They were coming in fast and furious. Commissioner Donlevy, I guess?
No. Okay. I suggest we both schedule the next meeting for 4 hours and schedule an additional meeting with the sincere and fervent hope that we don't have to go there.
I was going to suggest.
I'll put a little thing on Ted's comment. Let's do the 4 and pressure ourselves, because if we put the other one, we're going to go to the other. So let's do the 4 and get it done.
I'm with Commissioner Oseguera. Let's see if we could do an 8 to noon, and that's it. And then
get it done.
Get it done, and Commissioner Ward and I can be done and getting this out at the latest by that Friday the 18th, and then it's off our plates.
Yep.
So we'll schedule from 8 to noon on the 16th.
Does that preclude the idea of scheduling an additional meeting? Just being clear. It does. We don't decide to schedule an additional meeting. We've only got 4 hours to finish this thing as a group.
Yep.
You'd still have 10 days to notice.
Right.
So.
Yeah. We could schedule another meeting at the end of the 16th if we really had to, but I guess what we're trying to say is we really don't want to. So let's everybody get the work done, get your truck changes in, send us your language, because if we have 17 people going through language is extremely difficult to do quickly or fairly. Okay. So
And Chairperson Sanborn, I'll be on vacation, but I'll be on. But if you go too long, I might have to start drinking at one point.
Well, I think that goes for all of us on any of these meetings.
Forewarned, by the way.
Are we supposed to announce that?
Oh, well, I'm glad you're getting a vacation. Well, that's it then. And then I would say for agenda items for the future meetings, I'd ask for you to think about, it looks like our next scheduled meeting I would propose is not until September 1st, Wednesday, September 1st. I would also propose that we go to once a month commission meetings for a while and let everybody kind of pace ourselves. We did a whole lot this first year, and I just want you to think about it. We don't have to decide today, but that's what I would propose, is we start on the first Wednesday of every month. We have one meeting a month, maybe to the 3 hours, and then the committees do the work, and then thinking about what committees do you want? Do you think we have the right committee structure? Should we do different committees? Just be thinking about that as we go into the second year. And if there's anything you want on the agenda for September 1st, please bring it to the next meeting so we're ready to set the agenda for the September 1st meeting, okay? All right, excellent work. Well done. I think the summary is we got our policies all reviewed. We have many adopted and in the report. Commissioner Ward and I are going to work hard on that report. We encourage you to send us your changes as quickly as you can so we can finish it and then send out an email to all of you. It's done. Look at it. Here's all the policies. It's all in one place. And that would be what we approve next meeting. But the policies that need second reading will go first. We'll read those first. Okay?
Chair Sanborn, you had said that we might have a brief discussion about kind of next steps and how to engage on the report as part of our June 16th meeting. So if there's time for that at the end, that would be good.
I will add that to the agenda with Ben immediately following this meeting. Thank you for the reminder. Okay. Well done, commissioners. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all your hard work. I think the whole country is going to benefit. I really do. All right. Thanks so much again. You guys have a great extra 8 minutes of your life back, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thanks so much.
Take care.